Championship Wrestling, bringing you great wrestling action, sanctioned by the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance.
That gets complicated. Well, NWA, as noted, we're jumping a week ahead because A, there was no show this week, and B, we're not going to have time to cover this next week, so we're just doing it now. May 2nd, 1987, for those of you keeping score at home, opened with a promo from the New Breed. He had a U.S. Tag Team Championship Tournament match this week against Bob and Brad Armstrong. They vowed to futuristically disintegrate the Armstrongs. That was their claim. Oh, the first half of this show. It's only an hour-long show. Man, the first half. Jimmy Valiant and Lasertron versus Randy Barber and Alan Martin. So you've got 4 wrestlers. 1 talented in Hector Guerrero doing a wacky Lasertron gimmick. 1 very charismatic in Jimmy Valiant. And 2 just goofs.
Geeks.
Complete geeks. You would not believe. I know it seems like we bury Randy Barber and Alan Martin every week. But they keep getting worse. They're the opposite of Vladimir Pietrov, who started off horrible and has now become bad. Barber and Martin started off horrible and get worse every week. I like it when the announcers refer to Lasertron only by his last name. Tron. Tron running wild, they said. So Tron, of course, was by far the most athletically gifted man in this match. It was not his best day. He fell down a couple times, but came back.
Yeah, he was working with complete numbskulls.
He was working with complete numbskulls. He hit the cross chop, and Valiant hit the big elbow for the win. This was amazing, and not in a good way.
First off, Jimmy Valiant is so amazing in that every single thing he does is big. He does nothing small.
No, he plays as if there's like, I don't know, 3 dozen fans in this building.
He plays as if the audience is on the moon.
Yes. He doesn't play to the back row.
No.
He plays to the people sitting up on the hill outside the stadium.
Yes. Now, I believe it was Alan Martin. Alan Martin was simultaneously competent and incompetent. Like, he would do spots where he was totally competent, and then he would do other spots where he was completely incompetent. And there was no rhyme or reason to it. It wasn't like, well, he can do the easy stuff, but not the hard stuff. Like, sometimes he'd do something complicated with Lasertron, it would be great, and then he would do something simple with Jimmy Valiant and totally screw it up. I don't know how to describe it. But this is my favorite tag team of all time. And this match was 5 stars.
And Randy Barber. Yeah, this was something, you cannot take your eyes off this, that's for sure. Nikita cut a promo. He's got 1 promo a week on national TV. He's got 7 days to think of something to say. His material this week is, Lex Luger, you are not one of the 4 horsemen. You are one of the 4 horses behinds.
Wow.
Yeah. He vowed to show Ivan that he was the master of the Russian chain match, and also show Dick Murdoch what the sickle was all about. Lex Luger versus Jeff Belk.
This was the most... I take back what I said about the first match. This was the greatest match I've ever seen in my life.
On their worst day, Randy Barber and Alan Martin were many levels above Jeff Belk.
Jeff Belk was Lex Luger. Did you know that? If you go to Lex Luger's Wikipedia, where it lists aliases, one of them is Jeff Belk. I'm not sure how the New Breed accomplished this, but somehow they got Lex Luger and himself together in the ring to have a match.
This was like when you were playing a wrestling video game and you both pick the same character, and one of you has to have the wacky alternate gear.
Okay, for those of you that aren't geeks, this is like when you're practicing wrestling in front of the mirror and you lock up with yourself.
I like my analogy better.
Anyway, Jeff Belk was somehow worse than Lex Luger.
Much.
Luger tried to have a match with the guy. There was a spot where he went for a power slam, and he lifted the guy up, and then he stopped in midair, and then dropped him over his knee.
Yeah.
I don't know whose fault that one was.
I don't know.
I don't know if I can blame Jeff Belk for that one. But I absolutely, positively, I can't even say that. I presume it's Jeff Belk's fault to finish.
I've seen Lex Luger put the torture rack on guys a lot bigger than Jeff Belk without a problem.
That's true. So it was Jeff Belk's fault.
I think the odds are it was Jeff Belk's fault. Lex goes to the torture rack, but Jeff Belk's weight is not over his shoulders. It's leaning forward out over almost over his head. So Lex goes to the torture rack, but the weight's all in front of him. Now Lex is bent over, running forwards, trying to maintain his balance. He fails, and Jeff Belk goes flying into the ropes, and then collapses to the mat. At this point, Lex Luger quit. He gave up, and he pinned him.
He made the right decision. Because, like, if I go to torture rack somebody, and they can't even go up for the fucking torture rack, and they fucking put their weight forward, which, by the way, like, this is all the pressure on Luger's neck.
Yes.
And they fall off and tumble into the ropes. I'm not trying again.
Yeah.
I'm just going to cover him. So Luger covers the guy. The ref counts the pin. Fucking Jeff Belk kicks out at 3. Luger just gets the hell out of the ring and leaves. And then the referee, Teddy Long, goes over and basically tells Jeff Belk, just stay down, dude. Do not get up for a while. This was such a disaster. This was such a disaster. It was a beautiful disaster.
You really should all go see this.
This is worth your $9.99 for the month for the WWE Network.
We've explained it in great detail. Let me summarize in plain English. Lex Luger pinned a man via a botched torture rack.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
That's it. We had a Dusty Rhodes video package.
Amazing.
What I got out of this was that Willie Nelson was in it.
Well, there was an appearance by Willie Nelson. That's important, but the video package itself it's one of those old 80s music videos of just Dusty Rhodes highlights.
Yep.
So what is a Dusty Rhodes highlight? Well, it's Dusty Rhodes hitting all of the heels with moves, and they fucking do flips. They're flying so high.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. It was amazing. You should have seen... Like, the first half of the show, now that I look back at it,
the first half of this was awesome.
Astonishing.
Yes.
It fell apart with Brad Armstrong as usual, but if you go back and watch the first part of this show, like, honest to God, the best thing on the show was not Jimmy Valiant and Lasertron versus Randy Barber and Alan Martin, and it was not Lex Luger versus Jeff Belk. It was the Dusty Rhodes video package where he punched J.J. Dillon on the apron. Now, we talked about Starrcade 84, the bumps that J.J. was taking. J.J., like... I can't even explain the bump that he took. He bumped on the apron, and I think he managed to go through all of the ropes on the way down. It was amazing, the bump that this guy took for Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
It was awesome.
We had Ronnie Garvin cutting a promo. He's hyping up the U.S. Tag Title Tournament, hyping up his upcoming cage match against Jim Cornette, and this brought Cornette out to confront him. So he's waving his tennis racket in Garvin's face, and Garvin had started to talk about how he was wearing a towel around his neck. Now, he's been wearing this towel around his neck for years, but all of a sudden he's got a point to it. And he says, I'm wearing this towel so that they'll have something to throw in for Cornette or something. And that's when Cornette interrupts him. So Garvin takes the towel, it's hanging over his own neck. He grabs it by both ends, waves it over his head, then over Cornette's head, and pulls Cornette into him so Cornette can basically scream as Garvin pulls him in. Garvin lays his hands on him. It is all a trap for the Midnight Express to jump him from behind. So the Midnight Express jump Garvin. In the process, the podium hits the floor and gets turned around. Somehow, Jim Cornette ends up stuck ass first in the podium, and he can't get out. Eventually, he frees himself. Barry Windham comes out to even the odds. They are tearing the set apart. There's furniture flying everywhere. Signs are falling down. And they all brawl to the back. And the cameras are shaking because they don't know what's going on. And the announcers had scurried off to safety, but now they're stepping back into frame, laughing and cackling about how great this was. And Tony said this brawl was uncredible.
He did say it was uncredible.
This show was on fire.
This was so amazing, the brawl they had. They destroyed the set. Like, they completely destroyed the set. Cornette's bumbling all over the place. He's upside down. He's inside out. He can't even stand up. They finally brawled to the back, and David Crockett. I mean, Tony just looked at the camera and said, that was unbelievable. David Crockett is losing his mind. And you know what? He had so much fun in this segment that 45 minutes later, he was telling us how this was just the most awesome show.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, the last 40 minutes of this show have been absolutely horrendous. You're still on a high because you were right in the middle of a brawl with all of the wrestlers. That's how good this brawl was. I can't say I blame him.
In the U.S. Tag Title Tournament, Bob and Brad Armstrong versus the New Breed.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Yes, the first 20 minutes of this sucked. For, seriously, about 10 minutes, including a commercial break, you saw arm drags, arm bars, and occasionally hip tosses and body slams. And that's it. That's all they did.
I will give you that once they got the heat on Brad.
Yes.
And he stopped doing arm drags and arm bars.
Yes.
It turned around. But he did arm drags and arm bars forever.
Yes.
And you know what? On commentary, David Crockett says, this is an offensive tournament.
Crockett drove me nuts in this match.
An offense-based tournament, okay?
About 45 times. This is an offensive tournament, he screams.
Yes. And at first I was thinking, isn't that every tournament?
Yes! What the hell is a defensive tournament?
Well, the way he explained was, you have to win. I'm not helping.
No.
If you fight defensively and you go to a draw, you're both out.
Okay.
You're both out of the tournament.
So
there's no bonus time. There's no judging. There's no other way to advance except to win.
To go on offense.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's why he called it an offensive tournament. Now, that wasn't my problem with this match. My problem with this match is if it is an offensive tournament and you've got to win, you have to win by pinfall or submission to advance.
In a hurry. You must beat the clock.
Yes, you cannot go to a draw. You're both out. This Brad Armstrong, for 10 straight minutes, kept just doing arm drags and arm bars. Dragging this match out for me as a viewer. And he's a damn idiot because at the end of the day, they're both out of the tournament now.
Yeah, they did a hot tag with 2 minutes left. Not even that. 1 minute left. Bullet Bob tagged in. Ran wild a bit with karate. And then they did a 4-way, and then the time ran out, and that's that. And once the time limit expired, the new breed laid Brad out with the rockerplex, and then Bullet Bob made the save. And
it's like if this were real, shouldn't Bullet Bob go to the back and just go, Brad,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? That was a terrible Bob Armstrong impression.
I couldn't do any better.
I can't get that southern.
It's a weird mix of southern and gravelly.
Why'd you have to arm drag that feller?
That's better.
For so long.
Because he's friendly.
You arm dragged him for 10 minutes in a match with a 20-minute time limit. Like we should have gone after him earlier. You should have tried to wrestle him and pin him.
Should have used more offense.
Should have used more. It's an offense-based tournament, Brad. I tried.
Yeah, I tried too. He had a Ric Flair video package. It was very poorly edited. Nikita Koloff versus Thunderfoot 1. Nikita's no longer wearing the neck brace, but still sold his neck when Thunderfoot attacked it. But it didn't matter. He survived, and he won with the sickle.
Whoop-de-doo.
Paul Jones came out in a lavender suit. And I feel like we should have stopped there and just celebrate that Paul Jones came out in a lavender suit. And he said he's not there. He was out there alone. He said, my men aren't here with me. I'm here for something special. But he explained Eddie Graham and Florida Wrestling had always been big supporters of boys and girls ranches in the area. And now they were doing the Eddie Graham Memorial Show.
Boys and girls ranches?
That's what he said.
Huh. I mean, I think I know what he's talking about, but I don't know.
I think this is what the boys and girls clubs in the South.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ranches.
I'm sure it's a nice cause to get kids out on the ranch and give them something to do and keep them entertained and educated. I'm sure it's a good thing. Point is, they're doing the Eddie Graham Memorial Show, and he put over you got a babyface promo, honestly. Everyone who's going to be on this show is a big star. He put over the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express. He did say his own men would be there, and they would put on the best show of all. But basically, it was just a babyface promo about this charity show they were doing. So it was very nice. Okay, we just did the Crockett Cup, right?
Yeah.
And you had Baron Von Raschke and Wahoo McDaniel as Team Grumpy Old Men. And another Grumpy Old Man teaming with Tim Horner as the veteran, as a teacher-student tag team, basically, right? And the latter team especially, there's like a whole storyline going on about how Ole Anderson has recruited Tim Horner and he's dragging him into the Horseman feud, and the Horsemen are saying this shows how selfish Ole is and all this stuff. Well, never mind any of that now, because Baron Von Raschke and Tim Horner did a tag match. Why? I don't know. They faced Brody Chase and Clement Fields. Tim used a sugar hold, which made Crockett happy. And he did some stuff, and then Baron hit an atomic drop, which set up the rolling reverse cradle for Horner for the win.
Yippee.
Okay. J.J. Dillon and Lex Luger came out for a promo. And this wasn't, I'm not going to tell you this is a great promo, but someone had a great idea for material. Lex is out there, and he says, the Horsemen get attention from women all over the world. In this studio, every show we go to, every club we go to, women are all over us. Then he actually said this, we get cards and letters every week from women talking about the great tans we have.
That's what he said.
He said this showed that they were great enough in life and successful enough in life to afford leisure time out by the pool, unlike the common folk who are stuck behind a desk all day.
Yeah, they have no time to go by the pool.
I guess not. Or a tanning booth.
They don't have weekends.
No.
They don't have lunch.
So he ran down all the tag teams. He's got a bunch of tag matches up ahead with himself and Ric Flair versus the Warriors and the Rock and Rolls and stuff. He droned on about that for a while. Said he was going to take the U.S. title from Nikita Koloff. Ivan Koloff and Vladimir Pietrov versus Jeff Sampson and Cougar J.
This Jeff Sampson. Where the hell did they find this guy? He was hideous.
Between Jeff Sampson and Jeff Belk, it was an amazing week for giant jacked up stiffs.
That's
named
true.
Jeff.
That's true.
Just
Oh man.
Clumsy oafs with giant pecs and shoulders and no actual talent.
All you need to know is Vladimir Pietrov is right now significantly better than Jeff Belk and Jeff Sampson. And at one point, he was the worst wrestler that Vinny had ever seen in his whole life.
Yes. This Vladimir is not. Yeah, it's not even close. They had a bad match because the jobbers sucked. And Vladimir pinned Jay with a sickle, which may have actually been fatal. He don't think he killed this guy. They went to break, and they came back, and Ivan cut a promo promising to beat Nikita in the chain matches. So he didn't even want Pietrov at ringside to make sure Nikita had no excuses.
I love he had a line about how if you're a great teacher, you don't teach your students everything.
Yes.
I thought, you're a horrible teacher. That's the wrong attitude. You should be teaching them everything. Your students should eventually be better than you. Otherwise, you're a bad teacher.
Had the Midnight Express versus Bill Tabb and Larry Clark. The Express won in a minute with a chop block lariat combo.
It was a schoolboy. I don't even think it was a chop block. One guy was down on his knees, the other guy did his move.
They've got a name for this that I forget now. But yeah. So Cornette hypes up the Midnights versus the Rock and Roll Express in the U.S. Tag Team Title Tournament next week. That's going to be awesome. That will be better than the Armstrongs match. Cornette read a letter of support he had received from Jim and Tammy Faye Baker.
Yeah. He didn't say Faye Baker, but he said Jim and Tammy.
Jim and Tammy, I see. He's ranting and raving. Stan is just sitting there doing sign language translation.
Yeah.
I don't speak sign language. I'm guessing this is bullshit. I don't know.
Well, he did the same signs over and over again, so my guess would be
yes.
It was not legitimate sign language.
Yes. So Cornette is on the verge of tears.
On the verge. He's openly weeping. He's openly weeping that there's no escape for him. He's done for when he gets in the cage with Garvin.
Yes.
And he'll never get in the ring again. He cries. They drag him off screen.
And there's Tony Schiavone. I forget what he said, but he had...
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
He had no sympathy.
He had no sympathy for Jim Cornette.
Didn't care.
He said something like, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back with more.
He moved on. This man's doomed. I don't care.
I do love, though, that Jim Cornette has been talking big and talking big and talking big and talking big. But now we're a week away. Garvin's still around.
Yes.
His men have not put an end to him. And now he's lost all hope.
Yes, Cornette, he no longer has Big Bubba.
Nope.
The Express have failed to take Ronnie Garvin out of wrestling. His lawyers have let him down.
Yep.
He's screwed now.
He's acknowledging he's dead.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really is great when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah. Ric Flair came out for a crazy Ric Flair promo. He always has his supporters in the crowd, but this week, 100% passionate approval.
Yep.
This was a Ric Flair crowd, and
he said, I'm supposed to be a bad guy, but listen to these people.
He laughed. I'm supposed to be the bad guy. They all cheered for him. They all squealing for him. He says he's got all the championships in the world, got all the money in the world, but he still needs Precious.
The highlight of him, he's going on and on about Precious. He's got to have Precious. He wants to see her naked body in front of him. He's got his wedding ring on.
Didn't notice
He did the entire promo, and every time he raised his fist or put his finger up, his wedding ring's right there in front of the camera.
What are you going to do?
Man, oh man, dude.
What are you going to do? So, he vowed to take out Jimmy Garvin, and he promised all the squealing women, none of them could be first, but they could all be next.
And they went nuts.
They were great.
They're all ready to be next.
Yeah. At the same time, they'd have been fine with this. Road Warriors destroyed David Isley and Mike Force in 15 seconds with a Doomsday device. Boy, this is a killer show, Crockett noted.
Yeah. It's killing me.
The Warriors cut a promo and defending the six-man tag titles against the Horsemen, and by that I mean Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson. And they said Lex was ducking them. And they also said Lex needed to learn how to do a proper most muscular pose and demonstrated what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, he sure did.
Every once in a while, Hawk gets technical.
You know, this was a very good Hawk interview for once.
Yes.
He wasn't just out of his mind.
No.
He had a point to everything he said. And then Paul Ellering cuts a promo wearing a hat from a local bar in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Phone number on national television.
Yes.
It's like, man, this guy got himself some free meals. Good for
I
him.
hope he got a beer or two out of that. Ron Garvin versus Larry Stevens went like a minute. Garvin just beat this guy up with overhead slaps and Shibata headbutts, and he quickly won with a knockout punch.
No, these were not Shibata headbutts. They were fake. And they were very effective to this crowd.
I guess. They look that fake to me. JJ and Tully Blanchard came out for a promo. They're no longer waving around a stack of bills. They have a briefcase, which they say they claimed contained $10,000. Blanchard runs down all the baby faces. He says, Nikita Koloff came to this country, he says, with nothing, and now he's a great star. Dusty Rhodes was the son of a plumber in the dirty parts of Texas. Now he's a giant star. The Road Warriors talk about how they came from the mean streets of Chicago. Now they're great stars. You know something about the Horsemen? We started out on top. He actually said, we were born with silver spoons in our mouths, and we've worked hard to stay here. That was the best line.
Well, you got to remember, the 80s, there was that show, Silver Spoons.
What, you know what that means, right?
I know, but the point was, it was still a babyface kid.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's the 80s. It's all about money. You were born with money? Good for you.
Tully Blanchard was convinced that it was harder in life to be born rich and stay rich than to be born poor and get rich. That's why it was a great promo.
I have to think about this for a while.
And then Jimmy Garvin wrestled Paul Garner. Paul Garner's Farmer Tan.
Yeah, Paul Garner's a big Abe Lincoln looking guy.
He's exactly like Abe Lincoln.
Yep. He looks like he's been
working in the fields.
Legit farming.
Yeah. And Garvin pinned him with a brainbuster that looked more like a DDT, and that was the end of the show.
If I ever get a chance to interview Kevin Owens, I got to ask him about his Farmer Tan. Because he has it on every single show. It doesn't matter if it's summer. It doesn't matter if it's winter. It never gets more or less pronounced. He has to put it on before every show.
I guess.
I'm convinced. Paul Garner, no. Paul Garner was out in the fields. He didn't give a shit, and he wore a tank top, came in here. It's funny because Garvin is not a very good wrestler, but he had a very dangerous finish that he never screwed up.
Yes.
Always looked great.
He's not a very good wrestler, but it's not like stuff he did was sloppy or looked bad. He just didn't do much.
He didn't do a lot.
Yeah.
And that was a show.
That was our show, everyone.
They go back to the announcers, and they start talking about next week, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm thinking, so they got to be building up an angle here. Although, why would they be wrapping up the show early? Like, who's going to believe they were wrapping up the show early to shoot an angle? And then the show ended.
Yes.
Just an hour long. Oh, well. I got another song. We got time.
We do.
This is from Jason. I don't know if we played this before.
You're the one who went through my bag, you stole my gear, and you stole my Loverboy tape.
See Lenny Lane cruising in his car. Everybody's working for the weekend.
You want to be in the show? Da-na-na-na-na-na.
I hate you. That's the end.
That's the
And there will be gorilla shit all over the Omni.
Righto. NWA World Championship Wrestling from May 9th, 1987. The show opened with clips from a couple weeks ago when Ronnie Garvin, Barry Windham, and the Midnight Express were brawling and destroyed the set. It was very exciting at the time.
It was very exciting, and they showed the replay, and I had not noticed this on first viewing, but Ron Garvin came out to confront Jim Cornette, and Cornette's ranting and raving and everything like that, and Ron Garvin's exact words were, "I'll kill you right now."
Yes.
That seems pretty serious.
He's not a happy man.
No, but then he came out here and he cut this promo, and this was the happiest that I've ever seen Ron Garvin. And he wasn't very happy, but it was still the happiest I'd ever seen him, because the day this was taped, that evening was the evening that Ron Garvin was going to get Jim Cornette inside a steel cage, and he was going to kill him.
He was going to get to kill him. And he explained. First of all, he reminded everyone what this is all about. It's because Jim Cornette had set his face on fire and also cost him the U.S. tag titles. And the way he explained it, these two were on par.
Sure,
now,
yeah.
I'm all in favor of making championship titles seem important, but of the two, the facial arson seems like the bigger deal to me.
Well, you know, Vinny, when you're a competitor, these championships mean a lot.
Hey, that's true. That's true. So he compared Cornette to a Nazi and a war criminal and vowed to take his time and torture him in the cage. We had Jimmy Garvin versus Larry Clark. You know your rule about how guys should never wrestle in white trunks?
Oh, yeah.
A rule Garvin broke here, by the way. The opposite is true for women. Women should always wear white. Princess came out in this all-white outfit with a gold belt on like a comic book hero. Looked like the White Queen or Dagger from Marvel Comics. The best she's ever looked.
Well, you know, you're right, but it also depends a lot on the woman. Some women can't pull that look off.
Well, it worked for her. I can confirm this. So, Larry Clark was a flabby man with a gut, a back fat, or some back fat, and man boobs, all of which I know very well. He also fucked up a hip toss, which is literally the first thing they teach you in wrestling school about how to take. It is literally the first thing you do. He fucked it up here on national TV. This went on for a while. It was bad, and Garvin won with a brainbuster.
Garvin killed Geek with a brainbuster was literally all I wrote about this match. I have nothing more to add, except that there were a whole bunch of new, maybe not a whole bunch, but there was at least one new jobber, maybe a couple here on this show that I'd never seen. And just when I think that you couldn't possibly come up with a new awesome jobber, they managed to do it here on this show.
We had J.J. Dillon and Tully Blanchard coming out for a promo. They were bragging about their $10,000 challenge, and it was funny because J.J. gets like 2 sentences, and Tully gets like 2 sentences, and then Tully himself says, and we'll pick it up after the break.
Yeah, he's calling his own shots.
And Tony says, that's right, we're going to commercial. And they go to commercial quickly.
You know what's amazing about this? I got to jump in very quickly. So I was at Cauliflower Alley, as I'm sure many people are well aware, and getting the Iron Mike Mazurki Award was our main man here, Tully Blanchard. And inducting him into the Cauliflower Alley Hall of Fame, giving him this award, was none other than J.J. Dillon. And you will be, I'm sure, stunned to hear that J.J. Dillon was amazing. And then he introduced Tully, and Tully was amazing. Now, my point of all of this is that we've been watching these old NWA shows, and J.J. Dillon comes out every week, and he's great. I just saw J.J. Dillon at Cauliflower Alley 30 years later, and he was great. We're also watching Retro, Raw, and Nitro. And do you know who is not great on Nitro?
J.J. Dillon.
J.J. Dillon. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, it's really not amazing because if you followed the story of WCW, it's patently obvious that, like, nobody was any good there, even people that actually were good. Like, sometimes people managed to stand out, but they fucked everybody up. They screwed everything up. They squandered talent. I mean, it was never more obvious to me than Wednesday when J.J. Dillon came out and did the best induction speech ever. Because I could have at least believed that, you know what, in the 80s, J.J. was awesome. But by the 90s, he just wasn't awesome anymore. And he was past his peak as a performer and a talker, and it was just all downhill. Wrong! He's fucking great today! He was great 30 years ago. He's great today. WCW just fucking sucked. That's the lesson of the day.
He was not great enough to achieve escape velocity in the planet of WCW and their suckiness. Well, back here in 1987, they go to a commercial. They come back, and they show a clip of Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA going to ringside. Magnum begins by saying, "It's good to be alive in 1987," and I know he meant it. He said he listened to Tully Blanchard writing down the common people, but he had 63,000 letters from common people at home, and every one of them was worth more than being a horseman.
You know what's funny
That was
is
awesome.
When you watch wrestling today, if somebody had said, I've got 63,000, even if they said, I've got 63,000 tweets from fans, I would think that they were full of shit. But I 100% believed that at his house, Magnum TA had 63,000 letters from fans. I totally believe that.
Not a doubt in my mind.
And he was walking, but you could tell that he was in rough shape.
Arm was still in a sling. It has been months since his accident, and well, yeah, we know how that went, how that ended. Let's see. So he had his he spoke his mind. Dusty then pulls out a paper grocery bag which contains a big pile of money. He says, "You know, my father was a plumber. He was his own man. He never joined a union. He never made $12 an hour." He said that, and I thought, boy, this is the best argument for unions I've ever heard in my life. So Dusty claimed this bag of money contained $50,000.
Yeah, let me tell you something. If I ever go to the bank and take out $50,000 in cash,
In small bills, mind you.
I hope I show up with something better than a fucking paper bag.
I guess he's the common man, and common man can't afford briefcases.
You know, common men can afford like a duffel bag or maybe even like a plastic bag. But a paper bag for $50,000 in small bills? Bad plan, dude.
Yeah. So he challenged Tully and the Horsemen to put up $50,000 of their own money and have a winner-take-all match. And they go back to the studio, and Tully and Dillon are pissed because Dusty has stolen their thunder and their $10,000 challenge. He's one-upped them. Their pride is hurt. So Dillon says, the rubes in the crowd, you're impressed by $50,000. You're not used to the bill of the Horsemen pay. That's chump change. And Tully says, listen, you can try to grandstand me all he wants, but the bottom line is I am a TV champion. I set the rules about who I wrestle, when I wrestle, and where we wrestle. They accused Dusty of stealing Tully's thunder again, and they vowed he would never get a title match on free TV.
You know, all these Raws that we watch nowadays, and like John Cena's doing a back and forth with somebody, and of course the other guy goes first, and when it's over, you're like, pretty damn good promo. And then it's John Cena's turn, and he goes, and he just blows this dude completely out of the water. Back here in 1987, all four of the guys that spoke during this segment, Tully, Dusty, Magnum, and JJ, they were all John Cena. It was amazing. They were all so great. I think in order, Dusty was the best, followed by Tully, followed by Magnum, followed by JJ. But if you wanted to shuffle that up a bit, I'd have no problem listening to your argument. That's some great promo guys back there.
They sure could talk. All four of them, yes. We have the New Breed versus Alan Martin and Clement Fields. I finally figured out specifically where I've heard the New Breed's network music before.
Really?
I'm almost positive they just took the theme from In Living Color and took out Heavy D rapping. I'm almost positive it's the same song.
It's possible.
So I'm watching this.
It's got to, you know what? It's got to be like a close ripoff. I don't know if you could get away with. I mean, they're taking the music out for rights issues.
Right.
So I don't think you can just use the In Living Color theme and take the guy rapping out.
I'm partly being facetious, but I swear it's the same beat. It sounds exactly the same.
Well, I do love that their gimmick was they were from the future. And so, like, whoever was putting together this show and they take out the old Beastie Boys music, they, like, probably Googled public domain music 90s or early 2000s. And they put it in, which actually makes the gimmick even better. It's like, man, these guys are using a song that actually feels like it's a little bit from the future.
Yes, like everything else they do. So, okay, I'm going over my notes here, and I realize I have confused these men repeatedly. Chris Champion is a taller guy with a shorter hair, and Sean Royal is a shorter one with a mullet, right?
No, other way around.
Damn it.
Unless they fucked it up.
They may have. I'm almost positive they did.
They claimed that the guy with the mullet was Chris Champion. And then the guy with the short hair was the other geek, whatever the hell his name was.
Okay, well, this is important because I'm going to talk about this. Okay, I'm almost positive Chris Champion was the tall one because Chris Champion was also Yoshi Kwan.
That is true.
Which I knew, but I'd forgotten until I looked it up for talking about this. And how can he be so wacky as Yoshi Kwan and so bland and boring as himself?
Well, maybe you've got it backwards because the guy with the mullet cut like a kind of great promo after the match. And the guy with the short hair cut, I swear to God, one of the worst promos I've ever heard in my entire fucking life.
Awful.
It was
well, the reason
horrible.
I bring all this up.
Well, I got to say something too. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I watched the match, and then the promo was actually later in the show, but the short guy with the mullet was clearly the better worker. And then afterwards, the short guy with the mullet was by miles and miles and miles the better promo. And thinking of Sean Royal, I'm pretty sure it's Sean Royal. But I thought, this guy is actually really talented. Whatever happened to him? And the answer is nothing. He was around for like 2 years doing this New Breed thing in the late 80s. Then he just disappeared for a while. Did like one tour of Japan in the 90s and a little bit with NWA Wildside in the early 2000s, and that's it.
Well, I don't want to go into specifics because I'm not positive and I don't want to make accusations, but I think something happened with the guy. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
I see.
But I will say that the guy with the mullet, whoever the hell he was good. And I think he may have been just about the lightest wrestler I've ever seen in my whole entire life. He was so light. And as noted, after the match, he cut a great promo. And then the other guy, whoever the other guy is, he cut this just... the funny thing was, as soon as I started thinking, this is like one of the worst promos I've ever heard, it actually got significantly worse when he started doing funny voices.
His impressions of Dusty Rhodes and I think Yoda, I was cringing alone in my room.
It was horrible.
This was the worst promo I've seen since the last time he cut a promo.
Dude.
Yeah. So this match here...
fans like the New Breed.
Fans like the New Breed. They're supposed to be heels. They, at one point, called Clement Field Boy, which you would never see in 2017. They did an assisted leg drop off the top rope that would have made a fine finish in 2017, and then they just kept on wrestling and eventually hit a suplex missile drop kick combo for the win. In the U.S. Tag Team Tournament, we had the Midnight Express versus Rock and Roll Express.
This was amazing.
Now, before this even started, I put down in ink, or whatever you want to call it here in a text file, that if this is anything less than the best match on NWA World Championship Wrestling in all of 1987, I was going to be very, very disappointed. Well, here I am, and I can clearly say I am very, very disappointed.
Well, the finish was absolutely fucking terrible. The match itself was... Here is the highest praise that I can give when talking about a wrestling match. This match made me want to wrestle again. These guys, of course, it would only be with one of these four. And I would even throw in Robert Gibson, believe it or not.
Oh, absolutely.
They, first off, at the very beginning of the match, Ricky Morton and Bobby Eaton locked up. And I was like, this lockup alone is better than at least half of the matches I've watched in 2017 thus far. And they haven't even done a move yet.
Okay, you know what's amazing?
Yes.
They locked up, and I rewound it and watched it several times too.
Yep, exactly. So they lock up, and they're doing this match, and the match is... It's a very good match.
The first 10 minutes of this was the first 10 minutes of a great 30-minute match.
Sure. And I'm thinking, okay, so we know it's a fucking offensive tournament. We've heard this like 50 times. We know it's an offensive tournament, and we know that if it goes to a draw, both teams are out. Now, they're either going to go to a draw, or one of these teams has got to beat the other team here on TV. What in the world, I thought, could they possibly do?
Well, what they did was, as noted, the first 10 minutes of this was awesome. And if this had been a no-time limit match and they had given it all the time it deserved, it would have been awesome. But what they just did was a very, very, very long shine segment, 2 or 3 minutes of heat, and then a finish. The Midnight Express as the bumbling fools in this were just unbelievably awesome. Worlds above anything you'll see in 2017. They cut off they cut off Gibson, believe it or not. One of the rare times they cut off the Ricky Morton got a hot tag. That hot tag came just a few minutes later. They did a 4-way. The Express hit double drop kicks on both Midnights, but the ref, who was Teddy Long, got bumped. Made a cover on Stan. A second ref ran in and counted 3, but Stan's leg was on the ropes. Teddy Long saw this. He waved off the pin, restarted the match, and then Ricky Morton charged Stan Lane, and Stan backdropped him, and Ricky fell out of the ropes over the ring. That's a disqualification, and that ends the match and the Midnight's advance.
This was such a absolutely horrible finish. Just hideous beyond description. So they do this, and Teddy Long had taken a bump, and I'm skipping forward here a little bit, but the very next match, do you know who the referee was?
Was it Theodore Long?
It was Teddy Long. I was like, man, you're giving me a bad finish and you're exposing the business. Like, how could Teddy Long possibly come out after being bumped in this match right here? And my God, this was like, you can see the chinks in the armor of the downfall of Crockett Promotions. I mean, we're in 87 right now. They get sold in 88. I mean, 86 was so awesome. But man, this was lame. It was lame. Like, somebody came up with this idea, and they thought it was a good idea. But it wasn't. At all.
Let's see, we had...
I felt like I was watching Raw.
By the end, yeah. The first 80% of it was nothing like on Raw. But after that, yes. We had a Ric Flair video package. Not much to it, but apparently they liked it a lot because they actually showed it twice on the show. We had Dick Murdoch versus Cougar J.
I was so happy to see Dick Murdoch back. Especially against Cougar J. The best part of this match is Dick Murdoch is back. The fans are just all over this guy. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're going crazy. Dick Murdoch is out there beating on Cougar J. The fans hate Dick Murdoch. And so the fans start chanting, "Let's go Cougar."
Yes.
Let me repeat that. The fans started chanting, "Let's go Cougar." This goes on for like 5 seconds. And then, apparently the fans realized, fucking Cougar ain't winning this match. Nor is he even going to get any offense. So they gave up, and they started chanting for Dusty. I thought that was awesome.
Actually, my favorite thing they chanted was that all the children of Atlanta here on TV, all chanted Dick Murdoch, egg-sucking dog.
That's right.
Egg-sucking dog.
They chanted egg-sucking dog.
So Murdoch, this is his return from his suspension, obviously. And he beat him up for a minute, and he won with a brainbuster. And then it was time for a promo. And actually, before that, clips of the Russians calling out Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty, of course, never turned down a fight. So Dusty hits the ring. He's in street clothes, and for the fight, he tears off his shirt. And if you took a fan of like the last 15 years who grew up on modern WWE and showed them this clip of this middle-aged, very fat guy tearing his shirt off to fight, they would be so confused. They would not be able to process what was going on.
No. And you know what? I was watching him with his shirt off, and it's not even his shirt is off. I mean, that's a big part of it, but like, he's wearing jeans with no belt, because I guess he got the largest size, and they still weren't falling off because he's so fat. He's got his jeans tucked into his boots, his cowboy boots. God bless this guy. Giant gut. And I'm just thinking, even Dick Murdoch didn't take his shirt off. Like, this is the most unflattering look. And you're out there as like one of the top stars of the promotion running wild on guys, looking like this. Like, wear a shirt, please. So,
he, of course, was able to fight off both Russians by himself.
Of course.
But was only overcome when Murdoch hit the ring and made it 3-on-1. And they beat him up a bit until Wyndham and Garvin made the save. So then we're still in clip mode from whatever other show they had. And Murdoch and the Russians joined Bob Caudle for a promo. And Murdoch has a great line. Now, I'm almost positive when he was suspended, they said he was suspended for 30 days.
Yes.
It was a finite amount of time, and specific amount of time he'd be gone. So he's gone for 30 days. He comes back, and his first thing he says is, of course, to claim victory because his lawyers have gotten him back on the show.
That's right.
He was so great. And all the heels in the show are being great. But Murdoch is so great at being a heel because he's blissfully unaware of his own hypocrisy.
Or he's very aware of it, but he doesn't give a shit.
It's the same thing as when he said, Dusty, you wouldn't team with me, you team with a Russian. That's so dirty, I had a team with a Russian, and it's your fault.
That's right.
That's why Dick Murdoch is great.
And do you remember just like 6 months ago when Dick Murdoch was Captain America? He was just the friendliest old boy, lived next door for the barbecue. He just wanted to go over there and hang out, drink some beers. Now he's the most diabolical, cutthroat bastard you've ever seen. He got so much heat cutting this promo. I love Dick Murdoch. I'm trying to find out what he's ranting about, because he's just ranting about something. He's like turning purple, there's sweat's flying, he's going crazy. It's an awesome promo, but you can hear like maybe 50% of it because the crowd heat is out of this world for this guy.
Yes. Something about Dusty first he attacked the fans, I was able to determine. Then he ran down Wyndham and Garvin. And then he said, you'll note, because after they laid Dusty out, Garvin and Wyndham come to brawl with him more. And he says, you'll note, Wyndham and Garvin, Dusty wasn't there when you needed him. Because it's Dusty's fault that he has been beaten up by 3 men.
That's right.
He's the best. He listed a dozen cities throughout the Southeast. He vowed Dusty was his. Somewhere in here, he found time to run down Steve Williams. And then they were chanting traitor at him until he had to leave. This was amazing. Ronnie Garvin versus Mike Force.
The only thing you need to know about this match is Ronnie Garvin sold briefly for Mike Force.
For a split second.
What was he thinking?
He had to come out here. This was essentially the go-home angle for his cage match with Jim Cornette.
That's right, tonight.
So he had to show the fans, give them an inkling of the torture Jim Cornette was going to go through. So he was beyond the usual punches and submission holds that he used on guys. He's just doing tons of back rakes. He's pinching the guy with his hand, just grabbing bits of flesh and yanking, slapping him hard in the face over and over. And there was a point to it, because, again, he's trying to sell the Cornette cage match. But I think he just felt bad, so they should give the guy some offense.
Mike Force?
Well, it's the best explanation I have. I like before the match, actually. Ronnie Garvin always came out with a towel, like JBL. And he leaves the ring before this match, and he gives his towel to a young fan. David Crockett says, "That was nice." Schiavone says, "That was nice."
We need more guys like Tony Schiavone and David Crockett in this business.
Amen. So they do this match, and Garvin tortures him for a few minutes and wins with the knockout punch. We had the New Breed promo.
This was the promo. I thought it came immediately after their match, but I just realized it came later.
Yeah.
The guy with the mullet. The New Breed is feuding with, what's his face?
Jimmy Valiant. And
Lasertron. That's right. So,
or, as they call them here, an old man and a robot.
That's right. They're showing footage of Lasertron. I mean, they're getting attacked, and the mulleted guy, whatever the hell his name is, they're showing the footage of Valiant and Lasertron attacking them, and he's doing commentary, and he's talking about how an old man and a robot attacked me. And he points out, correctly, that Jimmy Valiant is hitting him repeatedly with a closed fist. To which he says, if I had delivered a closed fist at anybody else, I would be chastised for it, were his exact words.
Yes. This whole thing ends with that mulleted guy, who clearly was the best one on the team. He takes this awesome bump over the ropes for a punch. He gets punched to the floor, and it looks spectacular. And they go back, and he's ranting and raving. It's awesome. And then Champion begins to speak. He speaks 4 words at a time. He drones on. It goes on for a while. It's just absolute terrible death television. And then, as you noted, it got worse when he began to do impressions. Like, I don't know. I'm sure I have. But this is one of the biggest discrepancies in talent between two teammates that I've seen in a long time. Certainly that I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, the Rock and Roll Express.
I don't know.
No, it's, well, yeah.
Robert Gibson is capable. I see nothing of any value in Chris Champion so far. So let's see. Bob Armstrong versus Randy Barber.
I was so happy to see this. They actually had Bob and not Brad out there doing a squash match.
It was better than a Brad Armstrong squash match. It was not particularly good. It was slow. It went on too long. This meant we saw way too much of flabby Randy Barber in his hideous flesh tone tights.
Bob knew enough to get in and get out.
Okay. My impression was he overstayed his welcome.
Well, dude, compared to Brad would have been out there 20 minutes longer.
That's probably true.
Wasn't that long. Was it?
The one thing I did like about this, Bob's finish, when it's time to take it home, he goes to the middle rope, and Barber's fighting to his feet. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to do a clothesline or a shoulder tackle here. And Bob jumps off the top rope or the middle rope and just punches him.
Sure.
There's a middle rope punch. Not even an axe handle. Just a punch. And he pinned him. The Midnights and Cornette came out for a promo.
Vinny, if you've got a good right hand, and you can add some velocity to it, by, for example, jumping off a rope, it's powerful.
I'm sure if Bullet Bob had jumped off the middle rope and punched me in the face, I'd say, ow, my face. I don't know. It was just funny looking. There's a reason I think no one has stolen Bullet Bob's middle rope punch. So the Midnights and Cornette came out for a promo. First, they called out Ronnie Garvin and Barry Windham, which is going to be finals in the U.S. Tag Team Tournament next week. And, of course, in particular, they targeted Garvin. And so Cornette began to explain that he was a good, kind, decent human being. He had cards and letters from everyone telling him how nice he was. He didn't deserve the cage match. He didn't deserve to be in this cage match with this lunatic Ronnie Garvin. And he began to weep while saying he wasn't going to cry.
Yes.
Said he had made out his will. He hoped someone would take care of his dog after he was gone.
His dog Snuffles.
Snuffles.
He says, tomorrow's Mother's Day. I'm not going to be able to give my mother her present. I'm not going to cry.
And the Midnight Express are consoling him, and suddenly he fires up against a fight, and he says, he warns Garvin, I'm the smartest man in wrestling, and I might have something up my sleeve.
You know, it was weird. I was watching it, and he's sitting there crying. And he's crying about how he's not going to cry. And he's weeping. He's talking about his mother and Snuffles. And he's just howling and crying, and the Midnights are just right there next to him. And I all of a sudden thought, it's Jim Cornette. Like, he's got to have a plan. And then Cornette just stopped crying, and he explained, I may have a plan. And I was like, how about that? I'm booking it in my head now, exactly how it happened. Because they know what they're doing.
Because it makes sense.
Yes.
Because it's logical, and there's a rational progression to everything. Jimmy Valiant versus Terry Jones. Jimmy won in 15 seconds with a boogie-woogie elbow, and then he gyrated spastically.
You know, I couldn't figure out why. I can't figure out why, to this day. They haven't given anybody this fake music that they've edited in for Valiant.
This is a good question.
How can no one be using this music today?
Trying to think of who in NXT would be a good fit.
Well, I mean, No Way Jose is the obvious answer. But, like, there's got to be some random geek that you could give this music to and make a superstar out of.
No Way Jose is the best answer, I think.
Bobby Roode.
People wouldn't believe this, but that might be an upgrade.
An upgrade from Glorious?
Sure.
What are you talking about, you idiot?
Not,
but my point is, here's
I am
my...
messing around.
I'm messing around too, but, if you watch TNA for years and years and years, and you saw Bobby Roode, and then on another show, they had like Nakamura come out to Glorious, and we were on this show talking about how, you know who would be great with that Glorious theme? Bobby Roode. People would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He pulled it off. So my point is, maybe he could pull off Jimmy Valiant's old theme too. I don't know.
We had Barry Windham versus Rick Sullivan.
Nakamura could pull it off.
Nakamura could. Rick Sullivan may have been the most generic wrestler I've ever seen.
He actually looked like a young Bryan Danielson.
That thought occurred to me too, but bigger. But average height, average physique, short brown hair, red and white gear. And Barry beat him very quickly with a lariat. Then went to cut a promo. It was awesome because David Crockett's there to interview him. And he's David Crockett, so of course he immediately fumbles over his own words. And Barry has to step in to save the interview from the interview guy. So Barry talks about traveling the world to face world champions. He's faced Ric Flair. And he adds he's got a shot coming up against a new world champion in Big Bubba Rogers. Because you see, the last time we saw Big Bubba on this show, Jim Cornette had cut a promo about how a wealthy Arab was paying for Bubba's services. Well, that wealthy Arab was Skandor Akbar, who brought Big Bubba into the UWF, where he beat the one-man gang for their world championship.
Wow.
And now Barry was getting a shot, as I think at some point, clearly, the purchase of the UWF by Crockett is coming in the next few months, but clearly there's starting the co-promotion already. So he challenges those two. He challenges out Tully Blanchard. I think he's got a match against Tully Blanchard coming up on TV next week. So that was the main point of this. We had Nikita Koloff beating Chance McQuaid with a sickle in a minute.
I love how they claimed during this match that Nikita, before he became a pro, was like the best amateur wrestler in the entire Soviet Union.
Oh, of course.
And he had been training for the 1984 Olympics. But then it all fell apart.
Stupid boycott.
And it was funny because I was listening to it thinking, man, that's quite a story they're concocting from many years earlier. And then I realized it's 87. That was just 3 years ago.
Yes. So Nikita beat Chance McQuaid in a minute, then cut a promo on Dick Murdoch. He promised the superpowers would be ready for him. They re-aired that same Ric Flair video from earlier, and then Flair came out for a promo. It was a crazy Ric Flair promo for a while, for every crazy Ric Flair promo you ever heard. And I don't know what they called Cougars in 1987, but there were a lot of them in the crowd screaming for Flair. So he begins to address Precious, and asked how long she was going to hide the fact she wanted some of him. So he bought her a $15,000 mink coat, but she was still playing hard to get. But he's Ric Flair, so you can find the positive in anything. And the fact she was playing hard to get meant that she didn't want to be a one-night stand. She wanted permanent residence on Space Mountain. And so he was going to beat Jimmy Garvin. He was going to take Precious. He was going to take the coat and head to the high country, as he put it.
Now, keep in mind, everybody loves Jimmy Garvin. Everybody loves Precious. If you had just heard Vinny's recap, you're probably imagining some sort of crowd reaction, perhaps booing, catcalling, heckling, whatever. No, he whipped the crowd into an absolute frenzy.
They loved him.
He was like the biggest babyface on the show. It was so bizarre. Because they love Garvin. It's not like today where Garvin's supposed to be the babyface with the girl, but they don't like him, and so they're cheering heel Ric Flair. No! Garvin and Precious came out, and they went crazy for the guy. And then Flair comes out, and he wants to steal the guy's girl and marry her, or whatever, take her to Space Mountain in the high country, and they're going crazy for the guy.
Everyone's cheering for Flair. Everyone's going nuts. The Horsemen are in the ring for a six-man tag, and he's so much on fire. He goes to them, introduces them one at a time, high-fives them all. Then he starts moving around the ring, high-fiving fans who are running up to high-five him back. The Horsemen are just looking on at him in awe. It was so amazing. Forgot how great this was until right now. So eventually he left. And we had the six-man of Tully, Lex, and Arn versus Rocky King, Larry Stevens, and my new favorite wrestler name, Howell Moore.
I was in awe. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, a new jobber, Howell Moore.
Howell Moore. How did it... I started thinking of all the wrestlers who've had gimmicks where the name Howell Moore would have been better than what they actually had. Ted DiBiase would have been better as Howell Moore. Archibald Peck would have been better as Howell Moore.
I saw the name Howell Moore on the screen, and I thought, oh my God, what a fucking amazing name, Howell Moore.
Howell Moore.
And I'm watching the match, and I'm waiting for Howell Moore to tag in. He did not disappoint. This fucking guy gets a tag. He steps through the ropes, and he confronts Arn Anderson. He proceeds to begin striking Arn Anderson. He, gives him a couple punches or a boot or something. I don't even remember, but he hits him. Arn Anderson stands there, looks at the guy, does not sell a thing, and then proceeds to beat the shit out of him. They kept this guy in the ring for the rest of the match. They took turns beating the shit out of him. And finally, Arn grabs him and gives him a gourd buster. And this dude's got a gourd to bust and pins him. This was my favorite thing on the show.
Howell Moore was egg-shaped. He did have the decency to wear a singlet. So
that is a very disrespectful thing to say to eggs.
Well, I meant scrambled eggs. No. So, the only thing, he could take moves fine, he bumped fine, he sold fine, even his offense looks fine. The only thing he did that was terrible was when he had to run the ropes, and I think he must have been like an amateur wrestler. He had clearly never run the ropes before in his life. Because he would run towards them and then turn and throw on the brakes and kind of hit them like with both elbows and then come forward. It was hysterical. Everything else was fine. I did like as they were taking turns beating up Howell Moore, the fans were chanting, "Bear hug, bear hug."
They really wanted to see a bear hug.
They wanted Lex to hug this man.
Yeah.
And Lex refused. Lex was having no part of that.
It was amazing.
So yes, Arn got the win with a gourd buster. Paul Jones and the Awesome Twosome came out for a promo.
God, Paul was at his mumbling best here tonight. Just bumbling his way through this promo, tripping over his own words.
I like when he said the Road Warriors were motivated.
Motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they talked about how great they were for a while and ran down on the babyface teams.
Rude is about to jump ship to WWF. It's very, very sad. He was great here. Manny was great. Paul Jones was like just terrible, but awesome.
But that made him great.
It did. It was weird. And you know what my biggest disappointment of the show was? The main event is in the ring, but they're busy showing Paul Jones and Paul Ellering jaw-jacking.
Well,
Now, hold on. It is a squash match, so it really doesn't matter. But it mattered to me because the Road Warriors' opponents were Bill Tabb and a man described as White Shadow.
yeah.
I need to know more about White Shadow.
Well, I don't have anything to tell you.
God damn it.
There was a TV show in the 70s called White Shadow about a white guy who coached a black basketball team. I don't think this is the same guy.
God damn it.
So, as soon as they come back from break, they may as well just have a flashing neon sign on the screen saying, "Angle alert, angle alert."
Yes.
Because there's a close-up of Paul Jones dominating the screen, and the wrestling match is being shown on a very small inset in the corner. So, Ellering begins to speak. Paul Jones comes out to confront him, and immediately out come Rude and Fernandez to jump Ellering. They actually take the match off the screen to show Rude and Fernandez beating up Ellering. The Road Warriors win the match and then go make the save. They don't even know for sure what happened. Hawk asks, "What's going on? What happened? We missed it. We were wrestling." Because, you see, the Road Warriors were not idiots. They were focused on the task at hand and winning the match, not what was going on at ringside, unlike every bumbling fool on every episode of Raw and SmackDown for the past 5 years. So they have won the match. They have defeated the mighty White Shadow and Bill Tabb.
I guess. I didn't see the finish.
I believe they did. So they make sure Paul's alive, and then they're pissed, and they cut a promo on the champions. They say what punks these guys are, what horrible champions to lay out a man like Paul Ellering 3-on-1. Now you made a mistake. Now you done pissed us off. And Animal lists all the cities they're going to be in, and Ellering recovers and gets to speak his mind, and he says they've made a terrible mistake. They've made things personal. They'll regret the day they laid eyes on the Legion of Doom. Then he threatened them with Bushido.
Bushido.
He's going to make them watch Pride B shows.
Oh, man. That's not so bad.
That would be great. I would love to watch Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez watching Pride.
Oh, man. Rude would be having the time of his life.
Oh.
He'd be ready to fight.
He would.
That's
he probably would.
Yep.
That was the end of the show.
That was a great episode of NWA World Championship Wrestling.
So let's get funky like a monkey.
All right, let's begin with the good show, I suppose. NWA World Championship Wrestling from May 16th, 1987. So it was a 1-hour show devoted entirely to the finals, or almost entirely, to the finals of the U.S. Tag Team Tournament. That's the Midnight Express versus Ron Garvin and Barry Windham. So earlier today, we had an interview with David Crockett interviewing Jim Cornette in an empty ring. Cornette ran his mouth for like a good 5 minutes without taking a breath, as he is wont to do. Talked about how great his team was, how they'd been preparing like any other great sports team and are ready to win, and he's going to make his mama happy and make her proud, and on and on and on. And then he began to tickle David Crockett with his tennis racket.
Yep, he was tickling him. He was giggling. He was so cocky. I was like, man, they're building up to him being humiliated here tonight. Little did I know.
Yes. The announcers plugged a card of the Omni.
Which, by the way, whatever happened to him and Ron Garvin in the cage?
No mention.
Zero follow-up.
They had a cage match.
Last I heard, he was going to die.
Or he had a secret plan and Ronnie was going to die.
That's right.
There was no mention of any of this.
Nothing. We don't know what happened in that cage match.
So they plugged a card of the Omni, the main event of which, or at least one of the big matches, was a 6-man tag pitting Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, and Lex Luger against the returning Fabulous Freebirds.
My guess is that since Ric Flair is the champion of the world, and it's a 6-man with the return of the Freebirds, that's probably going to be the main event.
That's fair.
I'm not sure what else might
In
go
Atlanta.
on. What might go on last after that.
Well, Dusty's might do something.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
God damn, you're right.
So we got a Freebirds video set to one of the all-time great pro wrestling songs, Bad Street USA. It was all Mid-South footage. I don't know the whole deal, but Mid-South got Big Bubba. NWA here is getting the Freebirds back. So we got our first look at Sting here on Saturday night.
That's right.
Dark Journey was in this, amusingly slapping Michael Hayes. That made the Freebirds highlight reel.
Yeah, they made a highlight reel which included them being humiliated.
Yes.
Okay.
Jim Ross was in this. And, of course, it had Bad Street USA, so it was already a 5-star video.
Winnie was watching this with us.
Yes.
She was just astonished, appalled, shocked,
Yeah.
gobsmacked. Is his hair supposed to look like that? Is that real hair? Did people think that was sexy?
Well, he said that about Michael Hayes. Is that his real hair?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, it is, on his head and his chest. About 10 seconds passed, and there was a good close-up shot of his pecs. And she says, oh, my God, you're right.
Yeah.
Then she asked if it was supposed to be attractive. And I tried to explain to her that, yes, in the 1980s, big, thick, bushy chest hair was a thing.
Yeah.
She's not a fan.
No.
Did not understand
Thank
this.
God.
One is good for you, yes. Did not understand this one bit.
I mean, I didn't either, to be honest.
Yeah. And yeah, it's sleazy. So J.J. Dillon comes out to cut a promo hyping up the match. He vows.
No, I know. Some people will be appalled to hear this, but this video, they're singing Bad Street USA, and there's footage of the band. Like, they get out of a limo, they've all got their guitars. Now, apparently it's a band where everybody just plays the guitar. Apparently
just have
there's
a lot of
no other
guitars,
instruments.
yeah.
Like, nobody got out with drums.
No.
So they all got out with guitars. They go in there, they're performing their hit song, Bad Street USA, and I'm not going to check my email tomorrow. Fucking song's terrible.
Oh, how dare you? I'll go over there and fight you right now.
It's terrible.
No.
Like,
It's not, though.
It's a classic, but the performance is horrible.
Well, that's...
And like, in storyline, this was their other job.
Yes.
They were a band. I mean, I got to give them credit. I'll give them credit for this. It was horrible, but you know what? They did it. Not like all those years of... Like, how many years were we supposed to buy that Jeff Jarrett was a country singer and he never sang a song?
It feels like thousands.
Like, you know, you can sing a song and you get a nice mic and you get a nice room and you get a nice engineer and he could probably fucking make something out of it, okay? Jared never did it.
No.
He always had some other guy lip syncing or whatever. Honky at least sang his own song.
That's true.
He was a gimmick. But hey, they went in there, they recorded, they were pretty bad at it.
No.
But you know what? It was a fucking classic.
It is an all-time great song. All-time great. So J.J. Dillon comes out for a promo to hype up the match. He vows that the Horsemen can be just as bad as the Freebirds. And then it was time. Midnight Express versus Ronnie Garvin and Barry Windham. Shivani immediately noticed, Cornette was at her earlier in this all-pink outfit. He's in all pink now. But earlier today, he had a pink tennis racket. This one's not pink, and it's much larger.
He's got a supersized tennis racket.
Like, it's a foreign object anyway. Wouldn't you just want the biggest, heaviest one from the get-go?
Listen, you threatened to fight me earlier. I'll fight anybody that thinks that David Crockett sucks in matches like this. This is David Crockett's forte. A match like this for a championship with a great babyface team and a diabolical heel team and an idiot manager. This guy was living and dying with this match. These babyfaces would make a hot tag. David Crockett was just out of his mind. The heels would do something dastardly, and he was just appalled. It was awesome. Yelling, screaming. At the very beginning of this match, Barry Windham goes on the middle rope and jumps off and delivers a punch. David Crockett lost his shit. I thought, there's no way you're going to survive this match, dude. Like, you're going to be carted out halfway through. But he made it. He had better cardio than the Junkyard Dog.
Oh, I have better cardio than the Junkyard Dog. We'll get to that. Boy, will we get to that. So this match went forever, and it was good the whole time. Did we count how many commercial breaks? 2 or 3?
It was at least 3.
At least 3, probably
least
more.
3.
For 10 minutes, they did nothing but chain wrestling. Neither team could get an advantage. Then they threw Garvin to the floor, tried to double team him, but Barry was there to make it a 2-on-2. Bobby Eaton took a backdrop on the cement, just because he wanted to. And then they eventually were able to swarm Garvin for the heat. And the heat here, at least this part, it was nothing but headlocks, teased tags, and illegal double teams behind the ref's back. Yeah. That is 100% of what they did.
Boy, they did the old guy gets a tag, but the ref didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And David Crockett is just aghast. Like, he's absolutely... He cannot believe the referee didn't see it. This fucking goddamn referee. There was a tag right there in front of your eyes. He's screaming at the top of his lungs. It was great.
So Barry gets a hot tag, punches everything that moves. And things slow down, but he's still kicking all their asses. He hit a superplex here from the middle rope. And considering his height and considering this ceiling, that was a terribly dangerous move.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't trip and fall. I bet we saw on the other show, we saw Dynamite Kid do a suplex off the top rope. I bet Wyndham on the middle rope was higher than Dynamite on the top.
It's possible. You know that Gorilla Monsoon said that was the first time in his entire career he'd seen a man do a superplex off the top rope.
You know, if you watch Gorilla Monsoon, he's quite often full of shit.
Oh, man. This took the cake. This show, this wrestling classic.
Well, yes, but that line...
No.
You're not buying it?
No, not buying it. Come on, no way. Like, Dynamite had never done a match before?
He may have never called a Dynamite match before.
I'm quite certain that he'd seen a Dynamite match.
Oh, let's see. They cut off Wyndham again, went to another commercial break. Then Eaton missed a top rope leg drop. Garvin tags in. He's running wild with punches and headbutts. And then they go to the finish, 20-some minutes into this, and a lot of stuff happened in the finish. I didn't write it all down.
Well, buckle up, because they recapped it 3 times.
That's true. I guess I did have ample opportunity to go back and recap everything.
Now, first off, Gorilla Monsoon also said this was the greatest tournament in wrestling history.
That was a big
So
pile of
you're going to
steaming
question
shit.
whether or not he'd ever seen a superplex before? Of course he was lying about that. So there's a bunch of stuff happening. And they did a replay because I didn't even see everything the first time, but all you need to know really about what went on at the end was they're doing this big schmoz, and Barry Windham, out of nowhere, grabs the referee and throws him out of the ring.
Yes.
Now, the first time I saw it, they go through the whole finish, and I realize the ref is down, and I'm thinking, I don't even remember where the ref took a bump. Showed it a second time, and I still was watching everything else that was going on, and then for the second time, I thought, I don't know where the ref took a bump. Now, thankfully, they showed the replay 3 times at least. Mm-hmm. And the third time, the answer was Barry Windham babyface grabs Teddy Long and just throws his ass out of the ring.
Yes.
So he's down. Cornette's going to use the racket, and Windham goes after him. Cornette waffles Windham with the racket. There's a big schmoz. Another racket comes into play. Windham gets Cornette and puts him in a sleeper. Cornette literally goes to sleep. He's asleep on the floor of the arena.
He has been choked unconscious.
That's right. Garvin's in the ring, and he's in there with, I think, Eaton.
Yes.
And then Sweet Stan grabs the racket, and he waffles Garvin. They both fall down. Eaton ends up on top. The referee goes in and counts the pin. Total screw job finish. I mean, one way or the other, the babyfaces were losing, either via DQ or via screw job because he threw the referee out of the ring.
Yes.
But it was overkill how many times. They didn't just show a replay, they redid the finish 3 times.
In
And
its
it's a
entirety.
long finish.
Sometimes in slow motion.
Yep. Over and over and over again. And there was a part of me that thought, do I really need to see this finish in slow motion for the 3rd time? But then I realized, you know what? This was the inaugural championship match for the new NWA US Tag Team titles. Now, did this promotion need another set of belts? No. But if you're going to do it, they devoted the whole show to it. They built it up before, they showed the match, and then they made it seem like a big-ass deal afterwards with all the replays, interviewed the teams. You're not going to forget this. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and forget this match or who won.
Who won that match last night?
That's right.
Let me think.
This is what needs to be done if you want to get something over.
So there are some moments of confusion here as they tried to figure out who won. The Express's hands were raised, and then they immediately went to a Ric Flair video package, which I think is the same one.
It was from last week.
Which they played twice last week. It's like every hour they must play this Ric Flair video. So after the break, the Midnights are at the podium. Jim Cornette still asleep, apparently. And I'm not exaggerating. That was the story. They had not woken him up yet. So Stan does the promo. It's a great promo. Says this makes all the hours in the gym worth it. This makes all the hundreds of miles on the road worth it all. And you fans, you can chant all you want. You can make lewd, crude remarks. Which is what he actually said. But no one could deny that they were the champions. Told the fans at home, take out your pocket cameras in 1987. Take pictures of the new champs. And Crockett interrupts and says, I want to get a replay of this finish, and we'll see if you did this fair and square. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of shouting here. I couldn't quite make it all out. But I'm pretty sure that Stan said there was no chicanery involved because we are Christian athletes.
We are good Christian athletes.
I believe that's what he said. So they replayed the entire finish the first time. This is when we realized that the first illegal thing was Barry throwing the ref out of the ring, so they should have been DQ'd anyway. So they go back to the podium. Cornette is there now. He's awake, but he appears to have been dragged behind a truck for several miles. He says this is an easy win for his team. He brags about all the terrible things they've done to Ronnie Garvin. They lit him on fire. Which would be enough on its own, but
it would be.
They knocked him out of the Crockett Cup. They beat up his brother. Now they beat him one more time and took the U.S. tag titles. They wished him great luck in his next job as a car salesman or a hairstylist.
Hey, he'd make a hell of a hairstylist. I gotta
In what
say.
way?
Well, look at his hair. It's beautiful.
Everyone gets a bleached blonde flat top.
So softly feathered. It's always impeccable.
You know what feathered means?
Have you ever seen him with not perfectly styled hair? You ever seen Ronnie Garvin's hair messed up?
And you know, you're making a strong argument here. I gotta
Thank you.
say,
His hair has never not looked good.
So they showed the closing minutes of the match in slow-mo for a third time.
No. Before that, Cornette finishes his promo, and they go back to David and Tony. And of course, David is severely disappointed that the babyfaces were beaten here and the heels cheated to win the U.S. Tag Team titles. But then he says, you gotta admit, Tony, that was one fantastic match.
Oh, yeah.
Tony says, yes, David, it was a fantastic tournament. And he finishes saying that, and then David suddenly clutches Tony's shoulder. And with an air of gravity, he says, Tony. And Tony looks at him. Yes, David? David says, let's go through this replay again. And then they showed it again.
Yeah.
It was like, maybe he was thinking of something profound and he began and forgot. And then all he could think of was, let's go through this damn replay again. It was so amazingly awkward. This was the best and the worst of David Crockett on one show.
David Crockett at his worst is the best.
Well,
so they played the finish one more time. Don't they have standby matches for this reason? In case the championship match ends early?
well, that wasn't going to happen.
Clearly
These are
not.
two great teams.
Clearly not on this show. Well, it did happen, though. So that was NWA Wrestling.
You're gonna be mine all night
Well, let's begin.
And what a way to begin. A promo by Robert Gibson. Do you want me to tell you why his promos suck?
There's many reasons, but go ahead.
Let me tell you one good reason. Like, if you've done 2 interviews in your life, you're aware that when they introduce you, the fans are probably going to either boo or cheer, right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Sometimes they just don't care one bit about you. But usually they're either going to boo or they're going to cheer. And so what do? Well, you wait till they're done booing, or you wait till they're done cheering, or you at least wait until they kind of let it die down a little bit so that when you talk, they can hear you.
Hey, I'll give you a third option. You can raise your voice and try to outshout them.
Not this numbskull. They introduce Robert Gibson. Everybody starts screaming for the Rock and Roll Express. He rushes into frame, and he just starts talking.
Even that's too much credit.
Mumbling. He's just mumbling. He's quietly mumbling. He's the quiet one, as we noted. He's the mumbly one. I don't know what he said.
I have no idea what he said for the first half of this. Not one word for the first half of this promo do I know what he said. Eventually, he challenged Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez to a title match.
How long do you got to do this before you figure this out, is my question.
He'd been doing this a long time.
A long time.
At a very high level.
Well, he'd been doing it a long time.
He'd been world champion. Well,
he had not
wrestling.
been doing promos at a very high level.
He'd been at a high level of wrestling television show.
That's true.
Did we mention this was the May 23rd, 1987 edition of this show?
Oh, we just did.
There you go. The Fabulous Freebirds made their return to Atlanta against Randy Barber and Alan Martin and Lee Peake. How great is Bad Street USA?
Oh, dude.
So many great songs.
Even Jim Cornette buried the song.
Oh, come on now.
Buried it. Now, I presume they really did come out to Bad Street. Mm-hmm. But it may have been an edit, because as soon as the match started, David kept talking about how the boys were back in town. And it was mentioned repeatedly throughout the show. Which makes me wonder if maybe they used that as a theme for a while.
It could be. That is another song, by the way, that Michael Hayes covered on his Bad Street USA album.
Maybe they used the cover.
In fact,
they didn't use the cover here.
I was cleaning up last weekend, and I found I still have the Michael Hayes album on cassette.
Oh, my
audio cassette.
God. Why do you still have cassettes? You've moved while you were a grown man.
Several times.
What?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for why I have...
Dude, I threw out VHS tapes when you could still buy a VHS player.
Yeah.
How are you going to play these cassette tapes? Let me guess. You saved a cassette player.
I'm trying to think.
You saved a Walkman?
My wife might have one in the closet somewhere.
Oh, my God.
I don't know why. I don't know why I still have these. Things on wrestling shows that you see... Let me start over. Things you see on old wrestling shows that would not fly in 2017. Confederate flag capes. Not likely to see it anytime soon. So Terry Gordy had a giant brace on his leg. He could barely bend it at all. He also looked much more like Craig than I ever realized. We need Craig to grow out a mullet to see if he looks like Terry Gordy.
Well, I assure you he does.
Yeah. He hit a
Except he doesn't move as well. I can tell you that right now.
Well, that's also true. He hit a power slam off the middle rope for the win. Then they joined the announcers for a promo, and they were on their best behavior today. Shaking Tony's hand, thanking Ted Turner and TBS for this opportunity.
It's a good thing that Michael Hayes could talk.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they had to be carried in the promo department, Terry Gordy was okay, except he was absolutely completely blown up. And man, oh man, Buddy Roberts, I don't even know where to begin. He was better than Robert Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give him that much.
By miles. But yes, Michael Hayes, I thought you were going to say it's a good thing he could talk because that covered up for his ring work. But regardless, Michael Hayes got a great promo. Called out the Four Horsemen in the Omni on the 7th of June. And he's running his mouth about how bad they are. And it's about to end. And David Crockett runs in and says, "Don't forget you're showing Fort Myers." And Michael Hayes says, "That's right. Freebird Fantasia coming to Fort Myers, Florida."
Freebird Fantasia.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was time for a meeting.
This was the greatest thing ever.
This is so awesome.
This was so great.
So, the Four Horsemen, except for Ric Flair, they were in David Crockett's office, a great big giant meeting table.
Jim Crockett Jr.
Excuse me, that's important, yes. Jim Crockett, his office. A couple of lawyers and management types were in there, and the Horsemen already bitching. Can't believe Dusty's late. wasting their valuable time.
I mean, they were right. The
They
guy
absolutely
was
are right.
late.
Absolutely are right.
Now, I give him a little bit of leeway because he was traveling with Magnum, who uses a cane.
Suppose that's true. So eventually, Magnum, Dusty, and the paper bag full of money come in.
But we don't know that yet. It's just a big-ass paper bag.
Well, we've seen it before.
It could have been Wendy's.
I hadn't thought of that.
I immediately thought of that. I took one look at Dusty. I was like, this guy just went through the drive-thru.
He may have been to Wendy's a time or two in his life. So JJ begins to state his case about why they're all gathered here today in the promoter's office. He says it's here to address Dusty and his $50,000 winner-take-all purse challenge for the TV title. First of all, he makes it clear. Tully Blanchard is the TV champion. That means he decides when he will defend the belt and where he will defend the belt and what the terms of those matches will be. And they don't think Dusty deserves a shot. But they admit the chance to earn $50,000 of Dusty's money intrigues them.
You know, in all the time we've been watching NWA Saturday night or whatever you want to call it, have we ever seen Dusty Rhodes do a singles match on this show?
I don't think so.
I mean, it is funny if you
I don't think there's too many tag matches.
if you imagine that you're just a fan watching this Saturday night show every single weekend. Why in the world does Dusty Rhodes deserve a championship match? We never see the guy wrestle. We never see the guy in any angles. Every now and then he comes out and he cuts a goofy promo, and he hangs around his friends who are all in much better shape than he is. And now here he is about to get a shot at Tully. There hasn't even been an angle.
He challenged. He brought the paper bag of money out at ringside.
I guess, but like, that's it? He just decided now's my chance to get this belt?
And based on the various matches he'd won over the past 2 decades.
Okay.
But no, lately on TV, he did not have a lot of big wins.
No, none. Not one.
So first, JJ says he wants to make sure that Dusty's money is legit. And he is in mid-sentence when Dusty dumps the big sack of money all over the table. And
That's when I knew it was money.
yeah, well, when you could see the money.
Yeah.
JJ was thrown off his game, but he pushed through.
I was so with the Horseman in this segment.
JJ says, in addition to this $50,000 that Dusty is offering if we beat him, we also want a $50,000 appearance fee before we agree to this match.
That's in addition to the fee they will make to wrestle. Mm-hmm. Yes. So whatever their respective purses are, the $50,000 that they're putting up and the $50,000 appearance fee for Tully is on top of it all.
So Dusty orders Crockett to accept this stipulation. Crockett wastes no time. He writes them a check. He passes it over. The Horsemen sign the check and then return it saying, here is our $50,000 stake. So the Horsemen, even though it's supposed to be each guy puts a $50,000 in a winner-take-all purse, now the Horsemen have nothing to lose. If they win, they get $50,000 of Dusty's money. If they lose, they give up $50,000 of Crockett's money.
Sure.
So-
But Crockett was giving the money to them.
Yes.
Technically, you're absolutely correct, but they did give up $50,000 here that
Yes.
he'd just written to them.
But it's $50,000 they didn't have that morning.
Exactly.
So, however, there is a catch. Because they pass the check back and say, this is our share of the $50,000. And Crockett says, okay, that's fine. Here is the contract for the match. They mentioned, by the way, they would waive their usual demands for when and where the match would be because they were so gracious, so happy to get that $50,000 check out of the way. Now they have nothing to lose, in theory. But then they look at the contract, and JJ says, wait a minute. This time limit isn't for 25 minutes, it's for 60 minutes. And Crockett says, yes, and I have your check now, so you have no leverage in this contract deal.
Ha ha!
The
Horsemen.
Horsemen have a huddle. They basically agree they're stuck. And they agree to the match, and they sign the contract. So it's Dusty versus Tully, $100,000 on the line, the TV title on the line, June 6th in Greensboro.
Notice that the heels thought they got one over on the baby faces, but they still fucked something up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
They were the ones made to look bad here.
Yes. And by the way, Magnum will be holding the money until then.
Yes.
Because he is a man that when you give that money to Magnum, you can take it to the bank. It's going to be at the building.
He's a trustworthy, dependable man. Lex Luger beat Larry Stevens very quickly with a torture rack. Ric Flair came out for a promo. He ran down the Road Warriors. He ran down the Fruit Birds.
The Fruit Birds, he called them. He was so pleased at himself.
He's so clever with that one. And he added he still wanted to bang Precious.
Yeah, but he said the boys may be back in town, but the horsemen
Yes.
are what's happening right now.
So earlier, Gibson had challenged Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude. I thought, well, I guess Rick Rude is still around. Spoiler alert for those of you who are not paying attention. At some point in the very near future, Rick Rude...
No, he's gone.
Clearly,
He's already gone.
By the end of the show, it's pretty clear.
He'd been gone, believe it or not, for like over a month at this point. And I guess they were still trying to figure out what to do with him. The best they came up with it was he got hurt.
Well, we'll get to that. So it's Raging Bull versus Rick Nelson in a one-on-one match. Yes, a pretty good sign Rude is gone and that Bull's wrestling one-on-one. Rick Nelson, I don't want to call this a shoot, but he was not cooperating with Manny Fernandez. He was going into business for himself. He was ducking away from chops. He was ducking clotheslines that Manny was not expecting to be ducked. Then he would try his own Irish whips and drop kicks, and Manny just says, no, I'm not putting up with your bullshit today. And he hit the flying burrito and won.
So, as we've talked about for maybe a year now, ever since he lost his hair match, Paul Jones has got a new gimmick where he's got a big-ass mustache, and he's got a wide-brimmed hat, and like a black suit jacket, and a white frilly shirt.
Almost mariachi outfit.
Yes, very much so. And he's always there in that outfit, and it always looks awesome. Except today, I took one look at him, the way that he had that outfit, and the hat hanging a little low, and his mustache, and all I could think was, you done fucked up losing Rick Rude. I've lost respect for you as a manager, my friend.
Well, there is that.
You let that guy go. You didn't have that guy under contract. Come on, Paul.
Did you really think Paul Jones was
Of
a
course
competent
not.
manager?
Of course not, but
You knew he would fuck this up
glaringly
eventually.
obvious here.
JJ and Tully came out for a promo. Talked about Tully Blanchard Enterprises. Said it was a company and a stock portfolio that now rivaled Exxon or Mobil. It was so busy, there was so much work to do, that Tully needed a personal secretary.
So, he's got a portfolio that rivals Exxon,
Yes.
and he's just now getting a secretary.
Well, for a long time, he was on top of things.
I guess he was.
He's so great, he can be a champion-level wrestler and a champion-level businessman.
I wonder if Exxon had a secretary by that point, or if they were fixing to have one soon.
I don't have an answer to that. So they had taken 1,500 job applicants, they said. Finally, they had settled on this woman, and it was Dark Journey.
I had no idea there were so many secretaries in the UWF.
Apparently.
It's crazy.
So her qualifications to be secretary were she looked very good in her leopard dress. Tully made her show it off like you do with your secretary. And then Tully got this great promo about how the hottest woman on earth would be carrying his money, while Dusty and Magnum were walking around with the common folks' money. He's not afraid of Dusty. He's not intimidated by Greensboro. Then he said he had a clip to show all of us. The answers are like, yeah, we got your clip.
So the whole thing here is, when they were in the meeting with Jim Crockett Jr., the Horsemen were doing everything they could to not get this match, unless, like, great sums of money were sent their way. They were not confident. But now, Dusty has suffered an injury, and as a result, Tully is glaringly overconfident.
Oh, yeah. So it was, the clip they showed was Flair and Luger versus the Superpowers in a tag match. Dusty ran wild. This was a Tuesday night in Raleigh, they explained, by the way. Dusty runs wild, puts Flair in a figure four, and then Tully attacks him with a briefcase with a DQ. And then he starts attacking the knee, the same leg they broke 2 years ago. He's whacking the knee with a briefcase. He lays the knee on, the briefcase comes off the ropes onto it. All the Horsemen are ganging up, including Arn Anderson in his banana yellow gear. Not a good look. And Nikita's trying to make the save, and the Rock and Rolls are trying to make the save, but the Horsemen are fighting them off, not letting them in the ring. And after a couple of minutes, the babyfaces finally get in there, and the Horsemen leave, but the damage has been done. And Dusty's left grabbing his leg and screaming on the mat.
So like he was in the middle of an amputation.
Basically.
And I know that Vince Russo never watched old NWA. I mean, it's impossible. But if he had, this probably would have been where he got the idea for a reverse battle royal. Because the Rock and Roll Express run out, and they have to pretend like they're unable to get inside the ring. They're outside, and they haven't quite been spotted yet, and they're so slowly trying to get into the ring, but not too fast or they might succeed. And then, of course, the Horsemen find them and stomp on them. It was amazing. I always love not being able to get in the ring. That's like when you get trapped in the corner of the ring. Like, I'm so scared, but I'm in the corner. I can't get out of the ring.
Of course.
Like, there's nothing but air and some ropes, but I'm trapped.
I always love it when it's the finish of a tag match and the babyfaces are winning, so they got the one guy pinned, but they don't cut off the other heel. So he could come in and break it up, but
He gets stuck.
he trips.
Or he's
Always trips on the ropes.
He tries to slide in, but now the ring is, in fact, less slick.
Yes.
And he just sticks to it.
Yes. Jimmy Garvin and Precious cut a promo. He said he still had his squeeze, and she had her fur coat, while Ric Flair was empty-handed. But the thing about facing Ric Flair, he says, you're always facing his gang, his goons. I was going to jump you in the ring or in the back or in the parking lot. You always got to watch your back. He promised there was a cure for that coming soon. And then tonight in Columbus, Georgia, it's the Garvins against the Midnight Express in a bunkhouse match.
A bunkhouse match.
Dress, street clothes, come as you are.
Yeah, bring weapons, whatever.
So I guess Jimmy's going to fight in his sequined pants.
I'll bet you he is.
He hyped that up for a while, and he turns to Tony and says, Tony, I'll have 2 tickets and plane fare on your desk.
Wow.
Because he's a big star.
Sure.
And he can get plane tickets.
Because Tony wasn't going to be there.
No.
He had other commitments.
Brian, as we've been watching these shows, who are the 2 most boring baby's faces we've seen?
God. When they announced that Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner... Okay, now here's the thing. They're not just a team on this show. They're champions.
They're the UWF Tag Team Champs.
You know what that means? Like, they're going to be having an abundance of matches.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God. They're putting Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner together as a team. I'm done with this show. I was fixing to throw in the towel.
I like they have the gall to call these men the Lightning Express.
Yeah, the Lightning Express.
You can watch them do their arm locks like lightning.
But you know what? They were 1,000 times better as a team than they were as singles wrestlers. This was synergy. This is what they should have called them, synergy.
It was so much more than the sum of the parts.
Yes. Like so much more. Like there should be a word beyond synergy. Like extra synergy.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that word would be. But that's what these 2 were.
So they went a minute. They made 1 million tags in this minute.
Good.
Yeah.
Get them the fuck out of there for any extended period of time.
Do an arm drag, tag out. Do a hip toss, tag out. This is much more exciting than do an arm lock.
Do another one.
Get it again. They won with an assisted leg drop.
This was a delight.
This was a vast improvement. They aired that same damn Ric Flair video. It's 30 seconds long. They show it every single week. It would be one thing if he wasn't on the show cutting promos too, but he is. Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express got a promo.
This was where Cornette buried Bad Street USA.
He said that song wasn't released, it escaped.
He's right.
How dare you?
He's right. Listen, I'm not sitting here saying it's not a legendary song, but it's bad.
No,
the
it's Bad
performance
Street.
is terrible. It's terrible.
How dare you?
Come on. This was a guy who was a wrestler who had a gimmick that he sang songs, and he did, and it was bad.
Bad Street.
Get out of here.
Jim Cornette. Oh, I said this already. They said there was a series now of cage matches between Cornette and Ronnie Garvin. They were certain these contracts must have been forged. Jimmy Garvin versus Dexter Westcott.
It's fucking Dexter Westcott.
Jimmy Garvin's gimmick is he's gorgeous Jimmy.
Sure.
So he always comes out in sequined like coveralls or sequined jacket and tails. Dexter Westcott was dressed in gaudier gear this week. He says, I'm going to get some tights and a singlet and some boots. And I'm going to be in neon yellow and electric blue, shiny spandex. It hurt my eyes to look at this man. Jimmy pinned him with a brainbuster in a minute. The Road Warriors and Paul Ellering cut a promo. They were pissed at the Horsemen for taking out Dusty. They said Dusty had taught them how to wrestle, but they had taught Dusty how to ignore pain. And they promised the Horsemen would never walk again.
There's something I got to mention about this and about the Hawk promo on the other show. So Hawk, And this is not just the 90s Hawk. He did in the 80s, too. He did a lot of very goofy promos. And he said a lot of wacky things. And quite frankly, these were stupid promos. But you know what? That's not what this was. This was an angry, angry man cutting a promo and vowing to kick some ass. And he did it later, too. And it's exactly like we talked about with Ric Flair. When Ric Flair's the champion, he comes out there, he has some fun with his suits, he talks to the ladies, he's just having the time of his life because he's on top of the world. But when he loses the title, there ain't none of that. He doesn't even wear the suits. He comes out already in his gear, ready to kick some ass because he needs to get his title back because he's not Ric Flair without his title. This is the exact opposite of the way they do it today. If these guys were in WWE today, Hawk would have to do comedy no matter what.
Yes.
Every promo would have to start with comedy because that's what he does. That's his character. Every promo that Dean Ambrose has to cut, there's got to be comedy. Somebody could, abduct his girlfriend and do unspeakable acts to her, and he would come out and he would be funny first, and then he'd do a stupid promo.
Yeah.
It's so lame. It's so unbelievable. It's okay to be funny. It's okay to do comedy. There's a time and a place for it, but not when you're really, really mad. No one's ever really, really mad anymore.
No. Ever. Dylan and Luger cut a promo.
This was also a good promo.
Lex has been
by
on the show.
Luger.
Yeah, for 6 months now? Vastly improved. Especially here.
Now, the one thing I will say about Luger is it's going to drive you crazy when you notice it.
Oh, no.
Luger always has to shout a word at random in every sentence.
It was actually, I know what you're talking about, it was much worse in the second promo of the other show.
Yes, it was much worse than the second one. And it's never a word that needs to be accentuated.
No.
It's always just random.
He has the pattern of breaking all his sentences up just into 4-word phrases. Every fourth word he will shout and pause for no reason. This promo was very good. He was very intense. So,
yeah, because he's got the U.S. title. He wants to win the U.S. title. He's got something to fight for.
Yes, he wants to make it known that the Horsemen are the elite. They're not the common men. There are no plumbers in their family trees. Nikita's gone soft. Lex wants his U.S. title. He's going to get it. Show ended with Tully Blanchard beating Rick Sullivan in 15 seconds with a slingshot suplex.
I was so sure that Rick Sullivan worked earlier, but it was actually Rick Nelson. Two indistinguishable jobbers.
So then it was time for more Mike.
No, before we even go to Flair, there's one other thing. Tully Blanchard's got a major big-time match in 2 weeks with Dusty Rhodes. They've each put up $50,000. The title's on the line. Fucking goes in there and destroys this guy with one move.
Pretty much.
This wasn't going in there and doing a long squash match. This wasn't even going in there and doing a short squash match. He did his move and won. Because there's a big match coming up.
On that note,
why is this so hard? Can someone explain this to me?
Well, another thing that should not be so hard. This big match is the biggest match in the company right now, and it's for the third title.
Yeah.
Because when you protect the belts and make them all seem important, then everything seems important.
They were building up Braun Strowman for Roman Reigns, and he lost a dumpster match to Kalisto.
Yeah.
And then I had to go on the internet and have everybody tell me how there's nothing wrong with it and it's fine. No, it sucks.
So the Horseman did cut a promo. You know what Ric Flair likes more than anything else?
Chicks.
Good-looking women. He was so happy to have a good-looking woman out there with the Horseman. He was just out of his mind. He says something about how the Horseman did not monopolize women, which I think meant he wanted his turn.
I'm positive that's what that meant.
He was going crazy. He said the Road Warriors always hid when the Horsemen came out. He attempted to find the Road Warriors behind Lex Luger, only found Lex, had Lex flex several times, and then it just ended.
Yeah, it ended with him screaming like a total madman.
He was insane here.
If I didn't know any better, I would think that Rick might have been imbibing here in the 80s.
There may have been some... I've heard rumors that a lot of wrestlers in the 1980s abused certain substances.
Oh, come
rumors,
on.
I can't confirm anything.
Well, I can confirm Tully because he admitted it.
That's fair.
But ended his career.
It's possible that stranger things have happened than luggage got swished and Ric Flair ended up with Tully's bag and just found whatever was in there.
Think about this. Tully Blanchard's career ended via cocaine.
Yeah.
Flair's 100 times crazier.
Yes.
That's something else.
Well, and he's still with us.
Yeah.
Still doing fine. He was at the Indy 500 today having a ball.
Yeah, they introduced him as a big star of the 70s.
Well, he was.
I'm sure he was thrilled at that one.
Okay, so also the May 30th, 1987 edition of World Championship Wrestling. So the Midnight Express and Cornette come out. And they are
first off, we had the recap of Dusty. And David Crockett promised fans... I mean, just think about this. He's a babyface, and he's talking to us, the viewers, and he wants us, the viewers, to know that he loves us, and he's got a big surprise for us, and he really wants us to stay tuned because we won't regret it. And he was right.
Okay. So Cornette has a letter here. He has written it to the offices of Jim Crockett Jr. He's reading it publicly. To make a long story short...
Let me read what I wrote. You can tell me if I miss anything.
Okay. You know, it's probably more detailed than mine, but go ahead.
I doubt it. I tried to condense it. He said that he wanted Jim Crockett Jr. to turn over control of the entire company to Sweet Stan based on Jim Crockett Promotions attempting to assassinate Jim Cornette by putting him in a series of matches with Ron Garvin.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
A few details, but that's the gist of it. He definitely wanted Crockett to turn the company over to Stan Lane because these contracts were obviously forged. Must have been forged. He would never sign contracts.
That's not even it. It was they tried to assassinate him. His words.
That line was in there as well. He said that he wanted the company would be in Stan's hands, and then eventually it would be returned to Jim Crockett if he was determined to be a fit leader by an independent committee, and this independent committee would consist solely of Bobby Eaton. This is a great idea. This is like, because we watched these two shows back to back, it's like Cornette did the promo on the first show about cage matches with Ronnie Garvin, and it was almost like a throwaway line. Like he went backstage and said, "Wait a minute, why would I wrestle Ronnie Garvin over and over again?" And they went off and expanded on that thought. So we had the Midnight Express versus Tommy Angel and David Isley.
Okay, so Tommy Angel, who by the way, Cornette was singing Johnny Angel.
Yes,
here in this match. I thought he was absolutely beyond hideous, and then I saw David Isley. This guy is so horrible. The Midnights just kill these geeks forever. And I don't want to be Anyway, wasn't long enough. So finally, they hit the double goozle.
Yeah.
And then Bobby grabs David Isley, and he's going to do a stump puller.
Yes.
Okay? If you don't know what a stump puller is, just like sit up, put your legs out in front of you, lean forward like you're trying to touch your toes. Your opponent like sits on your shoulders and grabs one of your legs and pulls it. And it's like stretching your hamstring.
Yes, it's a hamstring
That's
puller.
a stump puller.
Yes.
Fucking David Isley goes through the stump puller, and David Isley just rolls to his back.
Yeah.
And Bobby Eaton looks down at him, and he just sits down and pins him.
Yes.
Like, can you be any worse?
We'll find out, yes.
The answer is yes. That was a rhetorical question.
I like when, I'm not sure which one it was, and it really isn't a comment on either of them, it's a comment on Stan Lane. Stan picks the guy up for a body slam, but he stops, and he's holding him, and he turns a bit, and he looks at Bobby, and he looks at Cornette, and then he changes his mind, and he sets the guy down on his feet, makes sure he's okay, and then just clotheslines him out of his boots. It was awesome.
There was one guy on the show, maybe it was this spot, I don't even remember where it was, but there was one guy that went up so fucking heavy for the body slam, but once he finally was upside down, he like straightened out flat as a board perfectly. Like, he did the second half of the move correctly.
I see.
But he didn't go up for it. That must have been this spot right here.
It may have been.
I'd have put the guy down too.
Paul Jones came out for a promo with the Russians, Ivan Koloff and Vladimir Pietrov. He explains that Rick Rude is out with an injury. So for the time being...
The injury was going to WWF for a lot more money. It's a very serious injury.
His hips are sore from carrying his fat wallet. So, to ensure that the tag team titles stay in his stable, he is enlisting Ivan Koloff to fill in for Rude in title defenses around the country.
That's not going to go well.
Which begs the question, why didn't they just have the Rock and Rolls beat Bull and Ivan for the tag belts? For those of you who don't know, they claimed that the Rock and Rolls beat Rude and Fernandez in Spokane, Washington to win the tag titles back. The match never happened. The show never happened. This was right when I was getting into wrestling. My first getting Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And when I saw there had been a World Tag Team Championship match in my state, and I didn't know about it, I was outraged.
Wow.
And like 10 years later, I found out the show never actually happened. I felt better. But yeah.
In your state, it's fucking Spokane.
And I was 12. It's not like
Literally, you could have flown to L.A. for a big match quicker than you could drive to Spokane.
And I would have had to hitchhike or something or take a bus. But it seemed like a big deal at the time.
It's like Filthy always wants me to go to his matches that are right over the Oregon border.
Yeah.
It's like I could be at your house in Vegas in less time than it would take for me to drive to that fucking show in wherever. Klamath Falls.
Eugene. Wherever he was. Oh, let's see. Ivan Koloff versus Alan Martin. It was 5 minutes of boredom.
I gotta say, this Ivan Koloff, this guy had to have worked with a record number of stiffs during his career.
You would think.
Because he worked with so many geeks in matches, but he also had to team with every conceivable geek to try to teach him how to work.
True.
It's gotta be some sort of record.
I bet if we went back, because Nikita was already a big part of the show by the time we started, I bet Nikita's first matches with Ivan were fucking terrible.
I'm sure they were.
Well, he won with the sickle off the middle rope after about 5 minutes. But this brings us to Vladimir Pietrov.
It sure does.
Now, you will recall, I don't know when he debuted, 8 months ago, last summer, whenever it was. And I determined after about a month or two, he was the worst, allegedly big-name wrestler I ever saw. He's improved vastly.
He sure has.
He's much, much better now. So it was his turn now to carry a match for the first time.
Oh, my God.
I said, Vlad, have we got an opponent for you? This is Black Mountain.
Black Mountain. Masked guy, fat guy.
He was black.
He was black.
I could tell from the about 8 square inches of flesh that were exposed, like around his eyes and neck, I think.
I swear to God, he was blown up in 10 seconds.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm not even kidding. Count to 10. That's how long it was before this guy could barely breathe.
He was... Every square inch of his body was covered in a navy blue bodysuit. He still looked lumpy. He was horrible.
Dude.
Couldn't do anything.
This guy, the funniest thing, I've never even seen anything like this. You've all seen the guy that doesn't know how to hit the ropes. He runs, and then he just turns around, and then he walks backwards into the ropes with both arms down.
Yes.
And he doesn't, like, put one arm up to grab the ropes and hit him with his armpit or whatever. He just runs forward and then starts running backwards and hits his whole body on the ropes and then starts running the other way. This guy did this, but I have never seen a guy run so fast and do this, which is probably why he got blown up so quick.
Might be.
And I swear to God, this is the finish. In a squash match with Vladimir Pietrov and Black Mountain. Black Mountain reverses a whip.
Yes.
Vladimir Pietrov goes to Irish whip him into the ropes. Black Mountain does a reversal. I couldn't even believe my eyes. He did a switch. And then Pietrov comes off the ropes and lariats him and wins.
Yes.
I must see more Black Mountain. I have to.
I don't know what
If he's not on the next month's worth of shows, I'm going to be so pissed off.
Vladimir Pietrov is now a perfectly acceptable TV big man.
This was the second greatest thing I saw in all the shows tonight behind the contract site.
He's got personality and everything.
I don't know about that. Let's not get crazy.
More. He has more personality.
He has more personality than when he was a tree.
When he stood there. Barry Windham came out for a promo, challenged Bubba Rogers for his new championship.
Yeah, he repeatedly says his championship and his title and his belt, but he never actually said what it was. It's the UWF
Maybe
title.
he was not aware they were allowed to promote the Universal Wrestling Federation.
He beat One Man Gang for the UWF championship.
Mm-hmm. And he plugged a match. Well, he plugged a show at the Superdome on June 13th. He said, I'm on that show. Bubba's in that show. Maybe I'll get my title match then. He promised that Dusty Rhodes was up walking on both legs. The Horseman had failed to take him out. And he was right. Because the next thing they showed was a clip from some arena show where Dusty was cutting a promo. And it was one of those where his delivery was awesome. He was passionate. He enunciated his words. I have no idea what his message was.
He only had one message. His legs are underneath him.
I guess that's it.
Which I thought everybody's fucking legs were underneath him. I've never met a guy whose legs were above him. Unless he was upside down.
So he ran down Tully. He warned the new breed to stop talking like him. He promised the Lightning Tour of 1987.
The fucking new breed talking like Dusty? I guess they impersonated
like a month
him once.
ago, yeah.
But let me tell you something. When I hear the new breed, I don't hear them talking like Dusty.
Nor when you see them. He promised he would get funky like never before. So the big surprise they had promised earlier was Magnum TA making his return to the studio.
In studio.
For the first time since his accident.
Man, oh man.
It was November, I think.
Yeah.
So 6 months, arm still in a sling.
Not good.
Not good a sign. Still teasing that he's at least hoping to make a comeback someday. He's doing this promo, and it's a great promo. He's a very fiery promo about Tully and Dusty. And what they did was they put his head in the center of the screen, and then they faded out in the background of the podium and the wall behind him, and they put the standing ovation the studio audience was giving him behind him. It was great. And he cuts this promo about how he's going to be at ringside, he's going to be guarding the money, hinted he might come back someday, and then Nikita, who was out there to wrestle, left to greet him and say, "It's good to see you back." This led to Nikita versus Art Pritz.
So Nikita won, obviously, but the thing that I noticed here was many people have compared Goldberg to Nikita because they were big, jacked up dudes with bald heads that smashed people. But Nikita was way too polished.
Yes.
Nikita is Goldberg if Goldberg had ever really gotten good in the ring. Or not, I shouldn't say good. If he'd ever been like more technically proficient, he would have been Nikita.
I'll tell you this. Nikita is a tamed Goldberg.
Yes. Goldberg was more of a wild animal that was completely out of control, which was his charm.
Yes.
You don't want an in-control Goldberg. That's Nikita.
I've seen worse than in-control Goldberg then. Nikita was pretty good.
He was pretty good.
Goldberg was better.
Goldberg was different. It depends on how you describe better.
Goldberg was more memorable.
He was way more memorable, that's for sure.
So Nikita gets the win. He cuts a promo saying Lex Luger called himself every woman's dream. He insisted Luger was not every woman's dream. Not all women were impressed by big muscles and fast cars. Then they show clips of an angle where Lex had called Nikita out. Nikita came out and they had a brawl. They brawled in the ring, out of the ring, up the aisle, and various wrestlers came out to break them up. And when they do this now, really for like the past 10 years, probably more than that, it's just the goofs. If they did this in WWE, it'd be Aiden English. It'd be Bo Dallas if he's still around. The Horsemen were out there trying to break up this brawl. It was a big deal.
Remember when Luger first showed up and he did like a 5-second match and was all blown up during his promo?
Yeah.
Thank God he'd been around for a while. He'd have died.
Yes.
These guys brawled.
It was long. It was intense.
This was a great, wild, intense brawl.
So they go back to the studio. Nikita says in this brawl, he learned Lex was a big man, but he wasn't so bad. He said, "I've been attacked by Ivan Koloff. I've been attacked by Vladimir Pietrov. I've been attacked by Dick Murdoch. I'm still here. I'm still the U.S. champion."
Now, I got to talk about this next match.
Did we mention the Ric Flair video?
The Ric Flair video.
It played.
So the new breed's gimmick is that they're from the future.
Yes.
They come out here on this show. I swear to God.
They're not just from the future. They're from 2002.
Yep. I swear to God. They came out here, and the match was the new breed versus the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
That is exactly what David called them. The Hardy Boys versus the new breed.
John and Tim Hardy.
Now, it was John and Tim.
I assume they are uncles.
Probably.
And then I thought more about this. And I recall Broken Matt and Brother Nero saying they wanted to face teams from all over space and time.
Hey.
So maybe they traveled back from 2016 to face the new breed from 2002 in 1987.
Holy smokes.
This is a great angle we thought of here.
This is a great angle in real life.
So the new breed were technically heels here, but the crowd loves them. They're tall, they look good, they have cool moves, they have cool haircuts. They're not going to be heels for very long. They did this awesome move where Royal, who's the bigger man, held one of the opponents up, and Champion does this awesome twisting crossbody off the top. I thought, wow, it's a great finish. And they kept on wrestling for a long time. Eventually, they won with an assisted slingshot splash. Flair came out for a promo.
Did a lot of dives, so they were very clearly from the future.
They were.
My God, you mentioned these Hardys. I'm like 90% certain that they were just wrestling in their underwear.
I'm happy to say I didn't look that close.
It's atrocious. It was like blue with a white waistband.
Yeah,
there's no way that's.
I didn't notice
design.
that guy.
Both of them. They just had different color.
I see.
Yeah, they were in their undies. That's not. If that's from the future, it's going to be a new career.
Now it's our past. That makes me feeling better.
No, the Hardys came from the future.
Yeah. Ric Flair came out for a promo. He ran down Dusty for a while. Said he was approaching the end of his wrestling career. Promised Lex
again. Do you remember when Ole was talking about it in 1986?
I think it was 85.
It's going to be the end of your career, Dusty. Every year, we're nearing the end of Dusty's career.
Well, we are.
You know, that is correct.
So, promised Lex would be U.S. champion whenever he wanted, but he wanted to tease Nikita a bit and make him sweat. And finally, he promised he was going to beat Jimmy Garvin. He was going to take Precious and, quote, the biggest tatas in the whole world.
No, he said, Precious, that bodacious blonde with the biggest tatas in the world.
I see.
Yeah, that's how he described Precious.
He was all over the place. But that was his focus at the end for sure.
Sure. He had a way with words with the ladies.
Oh, he did. Silver Tongue Devil. Rock and Roll Express versus Larry Stevens and Chance McQuaid.
Okay, I'm pretty sure the guy I'm going to bury here is Chance McQuaid. It's possible it's Larry Stevens, but it doesn't matter because whoever it was, like the other guy should have smartened this fucker up.
One guy was in purple, one guy was in white. The guy in white was terrible.
It was so bad. I've never seen a guy flinch during a lockup. I saw it during this match. He flinched every time there was a lockup.
His timing was off on literally everything.
He took a knee lift. Like, how do you bump for a knee lift? Well, you take a flat back bump. Not this fucker. He did like a leg drop. He got hit in the nose or the chest with a high knee, and he responded by landing on his own ass.
He was always either too early or too late for everything. Eventually, they pinned him with the double drop kick.
Not quick enough.
They then cut a promo, and by they I mean Ricky Morton, thank God. Ran down Paul Jones, Raging Bull, the Russians, the Midnight Express, and the New Breed. Arn Anderson versus Randy Barber. Now we've
Poor
seen
Arn. Just left out in the cold.
Nothing going on.
Every horseman's got something big going on.
That's true.
Except Arn.
He is the forgotten
just
horseman
there
here.
having matches.
So he's having a match with Randy Barber. We've seen Randy many times. He's pudgy. He's bald. He has no hope. Arn goes to do like a rolling arm bar where he's got his arm and he's going to like step over and roll the guy forward, and the guy will just do a somersault and go to his back. Randy Barber just drives his own forehead right into the mat. Just a thud. Eventually, Arn won with the Spine Buster and Gourd Buster.
All of the fans chanting for Arn, chanting for the Gourd Buster. Yep.
Well, it was awesome. Tully Blanchard and Dark Journey came out for a promo. Tully's first line, genius. He says, Dark Journey, I'm going to make you the most famous secretary in the world. Even more famous than Jessica Hahn. For those of you who were not born, Jessica Hahn was a secretary who was famous because she was in a huge sex scandal. So this is Tully's plan, to bang Dark Journey until she's famous.
Well,
Yeah.
they're the horsemen.
I've heard worse plans. So Tully says, I saw Magnum TA out here earlier. It'll be a great day when Magnum can put the tights back on and get in the ring again, but until then he needs to keep his mouth shut. Puts Dusty over as a tough guy, but promises on June 6th he's going to shut Dusty up once and for all. Jimmy Garvin beat Trent Knight in seconds with a brainbuster. JJ and Lex got a promo. Dylan apparently noticed how good Lex's promo was last week. Because this is a newfound intensity, a new side of Lex Luger. And now Nikita Koloff is intimidated and doesn't know what to do. And then Lex got a promo that wasn't as good as last week's.
Nah.
And he promised to
Lightning did not strike twice.
It was still better than his old ones, but he had his pattern of saying 4 words and then shouting the last one.
It wasn't even the last one. It was always a random one. That's the point.
Well,
So if the line is, Lex wasn't quite as good as his last promo, but it was okay, he would say, Lex wasn't quite as good as his last promo, but it was okay.
That is much better than my impression. That is exactly what he did.
That is exactly what he did. I'm just going to yell every now and then.
and then pause.
At least I yell, I enunciate certain words. Not Lex. It was just a random word.
Yeah. Road Warriors versus Mike Force and Rick Sullivan. They threw Sullivan out of the ring immediately. He went flying through the ropes, went splat on the cement. Just brutal. And David Crockett responds by giggling and saying, well, they killed that guy.
That is what he said.
And
any other geek takes a doomsday device and landed on his knees.
yes.
Don't do that.
It's bad times.
Don't do that.
So the Warriors cut a promo running down the Horsemen.
Another great Hawk promo.
Hawk was very angry here. And he basically said, there's a lot of good people out there who want to see rich people get beat up. Which is still true. Main event. Ron Garvin versus Barry Phelps.
You know, before we talk about the match here, if I recall correctly, long time ago, Kurt Angle was asked, like, who on the roster do you think would have been like a great amateur wrestler? And his answer was Chris Benoit, who had not been an amateur wrestler.
Right.
But he worked with him, he watched him, he could see how he moved, and he thought, man, this guy would have been an awesome amateur. Do you realize that Ron Garvin has zero athletic background? None!
He just trained to look like he was a good wrestler?
Yeah, he just trained in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, he would have been a great amateur wrestler.
Sure.
You could just, to me, I could be out of my mind, but I just see the way that he moves and, like, the balance that he has when he's smashing a guy. Like, he would have been great.
You know who I always have that thought about? Finley.
Same thing.
What was that guy doing in this thing?
Him and Finley both, they move the same way.
Yes.
They dominate, they ride a guy the same way.
So Barry Phelps here is the jiggliest, whitest man on the show in some time.
I want to train Ron Garvin. I want him to come to the school. I'm going to teach him some shooting. Yeah.
Maybe he can teach you the sugar hole.
He's not too old.
No. Barry was so white he was pink.
I use a sugar hold, by the way.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. After I saw Ron Garvin using it. Usually on Wang.
I was going to say.
He hates it.
Because it hurts.
Because the damn sugar hold. Every time I put it on, it's awesome.
But he still doesn't know a counter to it?
No.
He knows you're going to do it and he can't stop you?
It's rough once you're in it.
I guess. So Garvin wasted no time. He punched Barry and his man boobs out. And the announcers plugged some shows that week around the country, and that was the end.
You know, it was 2 enjoyable hours of NWA right there.
They were fine.
Yeah, wasn't too bad.
One great angle. Nothing sucked.
A great jobber. Black Mountain.
Black Mountain. Let's see if there's any more Black Mountain out there.
There's got to be. If there's not, I'm going to be exceedingly disappointed.
I should clarify. Wrestler.
If there's not, Vinny, you're coming back.
White Mountain?
You could be on the next Defy show. Just, you're out there every show as the designated jobber that somebody comes in and destroys.
All right.
White Mountain.
I'm not finding anything on Black Mountain.
That sucks. It's too generic a name anyway. You'll never find it.
Yeah, it's, even if I put wrestler with it, it comes with a bunch of other stuff. Black Mountain Christian High School Wrestling.
I think that's it. Unless he's the coach, and this
Possible.
is inside rib. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up here for today.